Very good morning to all of you that are in Europe, and good afternoon to those of you that are in Asia. We are delighted to start today the second day of the conference that is dedicated to SMEs going circular and explore the topic that is related with decarbonization of food supply chains. We are here to provide ideas, solutions, and exchange knowledge and practices about how to accelerate and how to enable SMEs to transition towards circular economy and therefore contribute to net zero. We are delighted to have today distinguished companies and the speakers that will share with us the practices from agriculture through AI and different innovation that they have been leading and helping the business and private sector to create a change that we all would like to see scaled up and more contribute towards circularity. We have spent yesterday looking into enablers and how to create familiar and supportive ecosystem for SMEs to decarbonize. And then we also look at different case studies related to innovation. And we will also continue today to provide for you the landscape and the ideas and solutions that hopefully will trigger the change we would like to see. Thank you so much for joining us. And having said that, I would like to invite you all warmly to our panel that will be looking into business case studies that will create for us, hopefully, food for thought, and later on trigger the innovation that we have. And then I just would like to, without any further ado, introduce Chiara Fusari. Chiara Fusari will be joining us to present the case study from Agricolors. She's working at European Research Project Division. And Agricolors is an innovative startup that is working in smart farming sector. It supports farmers and operators of this sector in optimizing agronomic practices by making innovative technologies accessible and easy to use. Dear Chiara, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and good morning to everyone. So yes, I am very happy to be here and to share with you what is Agricolors and how we work. So if we can see the next slide, this is Agricolors basically. This is what farmers see when they access our platform, because what we do is to supply innovative technologies for agriculture, and our mission is making agri-tech sustainable. That for us means basically supporting farmers and technicians and operators within the agricultural sector in optimizing their everyday work. To do so, as has said, we believe that making innovative solutions accessible and easy to use is central and is pivotal. If we can go to the next slide, we can see a little bit of our story. Because Agricolors is born in 2017 in Perugia, which is in the heart of Italy. But our story starts before, from the partnership of TeamDev and Edit, which TeamDev is a large tech company, experts in geographic information system. And Edit is a spin-off of the University of Sant'Anna. And we can see how this partnership between company and universities is kind of the core of our business model and our startup. We developed the first forecast model for olive oils, grapes, and tobacco, because we are in Italy, so olives and grapes is central. And then we started the startup. In 2018, we launched our software as a service platform, which is the house of all of our services. We also started Agricolors Free, which is very important for us, because in a sector such as the agricultural one, where farmers are always kind of reticent to adopt new innovations, and there is a general backwardness of the sector, we believe that the possibility to access easily and without cost the platform, even if for simplified services. And get to know it, it's essential in gaining trust of farmers. And this is also the main objective of Agricolus Academy, which is used to train and to explain how Agricolus work more than what we do. We in 2019 and 2020 we kept growing, and we extended our network. And in 2021, we started to look at the whole value chain. So we started from the field farming, but we also believe that it is impossible to imagine a decarbonization of the value chain without considering all the many steps the food value chain is made by. And so we developed AgriTrack, which offered the possibility to track products and to create ecosystems for farmers, food processors, and resellers, and AgriFlag, which is our first hardware. If we can go to the next slide, we can see here what is Agricolus today, because as said, we have born in 2017 and we kept growing. So nowadays we are able to form more than 2,500 experts. We have 37 global partners, and I will show how this is crucial for us. We have many international projects going on, and the platform is available in more than 8 languages and active in 69 countries. If we can go to the next slide, I want to show you our philosophy. I don't know how many of you are confident with the concept of precision agriculture. To say it briefly, for us, precision agriculture means supporting farmers in understanding how to apply the right treatment in the minimum amount, in the right place and at the right time, and how this can be done only through new technologies. So merging farmers' knowledge, traditional knowledge, university knowledge, let's say, with the use of information technologies. So we, in the next slide, we can see, yes, that these are the technologies we adopt. We work on 3 main pillars: monitoring, forecast, and decision. Monitoring is done through field mapping and data collection through sensors and crop scouting. This allows us to collect all the data we need to develop the forecast model, which allow the farmer to understand what is going and what will happen in the near future within its field. This all integrate the decision support system, which is the star of our services, because its ambition is to give farmers practical suggestions. So when it is best to irrigate, how to irrigate, or apply fertilizer, or etc. So in the next slide, we can see how we want our ambition is not to substitute the work of the farm, but to integrate and support him, giving him database knowledge. So we work with farmers, but we also work with association and consortium, which in Italy are very spread and very common. We also want to support professional and agronomists, but of course we cannot work without considering the whole value chain and the public administration. In the next slide, I wanted to show you a brief extract of Agricolus business model Canva, where I highlighted what are the levers and the barriers we can meet in our work. And as I said, universities and research centers are a main lever, and we think that the knowledge triangle is essential in bringing innovation to the market in a sector that is not always prone to be innovative. And on this, the academy plays a central role, because to gain the trust of farmers, it's not sufficient to say, okay, you can use this platform, you can do this and this and this. If he is not aware of how things work and how to efficiently use it, it will be just not useful. It's also important, as said in our mission, to create solutions that are easy to use and useful for them. So the co-creation activities are essential. We want to engage with farmers. We have programs especially related to this direct contact with them. And through the organization of workshops and customer engagement activities, test beds, etc. And of course, the fact that in Italy cooperatives are very spread and present in the territory and often guide also the action of farmers, for us is an important lever. Of course, the role of authorities depends a lot, and so this can be both a lever or a barriers. In the next slide, we can see what are our services and how the core principle of our startup is modularity, because we decided to integrate horizontal modules with vertical modules, and modules are basically services. So you can have horizontal modules which offer support in understanding and farming more than 130 cultures, and they are available in different options according to the extent of the farm, but this can also be integrated with vertical monocultural modules, which are the DSS, so the decision support system, which are referred to grain, to maize, to grape, tobacco, olive, and tomato, which are the main cultures in Italy, but we are also working to develop them in other countries. And then, as said, we want to open our platform and work with other companies and other systems. So we developed Agriculus API, which allows other companies to integrate their services with Agriculus platform. And as said, AgriTrag and AgriPlug. The Academy is is one of our main jewels, let's say, because this allows us to keep contact with farmers and to train them not only in the use of the platform, but also on the idea of precision agriculture, in its functioning, and in changing their attitude toward innovation. If we can go to the next slide, we can see that we have a multidisciplinary team, which is essential in working on such a heterogeneous field. So we have a development area where we work with data analysts and GIS experts, a research area where we also have a lot of PhD in the idea of working with universities, and then of course the marketing area. If we can go to the next slide. Okay, just to say that, as said, we believe that research and bring innovation to the market is essential. For this reason, Agriculus is an important actor in the European research related to agri-tech. We work on different Horizon projects, but also we are partner of AT-Food and FEWare. And in the next slide, we can see how also industrial research is important for granting the growth of the service we offer and find new solutions for the challenge of the agri-food sector. Finally, I want to conclude with the next slide, where we see what is the commitment of Agriculus toward the SDGs, because we know that the challenge of our time is to find and strike a balance between what is the ecological balance and what is the social balance. So produce more, hopefully, or keep producing, but in a new way and in a transformed way. And to do so, it's important to guide farmers in saving resources, so save water and inputs, chemical inputs, they must be minimized, etc. But it's also important to support farmers in reducing their own cost. We saw that prices today are a challenge and they are growing. So the possibility to reduce inputs is essential for farmers. And this all goes toward the fact that it's possible to improve product quality and quantity through the adoption of new technologies. And this all is not possible to be done alone. And this is why Agriculus strongly believe in the importance of creating a new partnership. So I really thank you, and I leave the floor to my the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chiara, for sharing the model that Agriculus has been practicing. I think we not only got the overview of what your company is doing, but we also get quite good insight into what are the benefits of so-called precision agriculture. I think it is excellent to see how we can optimize the resources we have using the technology and collaborating together and having the innovation supporting the existing conditions. So thank you so much for that. And then now I would like to move forward to Ms. Nayung Ro. She has been CEO at Marine Innovation. Marine Innovation provides innovative technological solutions to the maritime industry through its wide range of products and services offered to the shipping companies globally. So we will move a bit in the food supply chain. And dear Megan, the floor is yours.
Yes. Hi. Yes. Good morning here in Europe. Yes, Luxembourg, and then good afternoon in Asia. Yes, I am Megan, CEO of Marine Innovation. The whole world is talking about plastic pollution, and COVID-19 pandemic has contributed to increased plastic use. Next, please. I'm here today to talk about one single goal. If we can stop using such a common item, why don't we tackle the problem by fundamentally changing the raw materials? And our solution is green sustainable natural fibers. Marine Innovation is switching to eco-friendly, naturally sourced plastic alternatives with natural virgin materials. Next, please. Marine Innovation considers 4 basic criteria for eco products. Products have to be 100% biodegradable, should be plant-based, zero chemicals in productions, and no toxins from plastic burnings. And we believe that when it comes to products, that means everything from raw materials to production needs to be safe for the environment. Next, please. Marine Innovation is green initiative based in Korea, established in 2019 with the goal to replace the single-use plastics. Have you seen or used single-use cups, which is no microplastics detected, 56 days to biodegrade, and internationally certified bio-based labels? What else more do you ask for? Next, please. Our seaweed-based products are world-changing innovations with 3 competitive success. Our solutions are raw materials. It has to be sustainable plants, technology innovations, no chemicals added during productions, and functions, which is biodegradable. Products produced by Marine Innovation are addressing alternatives to single-use plastics. And the basic reasons for selecting any business is the demand in the market. It's a matter of time. Marine Innovation's bio-based products are timely arrived to connect our innovation with every industry in the world. And both the industry and consumers are demanding more sustainable solutions for their packaging materials, and also demanding us. Solution exists and represents huge potential market opportunity, and we are at the commercial level. Next, please. Our seaweed-based products are widely applicable in various different markets, corporations, both large and small regions, countries. Definitely need alternatives for green disposables. Businesses will explore our smart, more sustainable, and more cost-effective materials and discover how these green sustainable materials can bring about massive consumption savings to the business with innovation, performance, and cost effectiveness. So here, products made of byproducts, which is the waste, which can be used as alternatives to wood. Our competitive advantage is raw material. We are reusing raw materials, which is the waste, to transform into the end products. Seaweed byproducts' biggest potential lies in disposable packagings. Marine Innovation's seaweed-based products are world-changing innovations. So what we are doing here is something significant because it is the world's first of its kind seaweed-based products made out of seaweed byproduct. We are also challenging ourselves in widespread applications, including industrial packaging. And more high-value products are also being developed in widespread applications as well. Next, please. Through our journey, we have created tangible changes. A startup like us, winning awards and recognitions can signal to the world that we have arrived. We believe that awards and recognitions, including Prime Minister's prizes, President Moon's citations, and 6 prizes from the ministry, not only domestically, but also in the worldwide, we selected to receive 2021 World Star Global Packaging Awards, and also Asia Star 2020 as the best of the best in Asia. And also a finalist at 2020 Dubai Expo is the proof of our innovation and should be an important part of each business. Not only that, active participations in domestics and global events, partnerships with big names, a total of patents, 54 patents, and a lot more. Our joint venture in France is also a significant step for global localizations as well. Next, please. There is significant momentum for initiatives by retailers and hospitality businesses to reduce their use of single-use plastics, and we are thinking big and creating ambitious forecasts. We have started to connect the wall regarding the tangible prospects of business developments. It's again, it's a matter of time that we need to activate and build our presence in the world. And the key project activities, including the scaling up the operations to increase production capacities, and also branching out to the new global markets and continue R&D, research and development into the raw materials and finished products. And also we want to raise the funds for our localization expansions. Next, please. Here at Marine Innovation, we are small, but a team of active contributors with industry experts with qualifications, and who are responsible for growing the company to achieve awards and recognitions globally as the proof of our technology innovations and sustainable materials to make a difference for the environment. Next, please. Currently, we got funded 1 million euros in total. We are actively starting towards many different areas for the development. In Series A, in the funding rounds of 50 million euro for in-house production establishments. Next, please. The world is facing new laws. Everyone is saying that no more plastic packaging in 2023. Marine Innovation is ready to talk to the world that we are switching to eco-friendly, naturally sourced plastic alternatives with natural virgin materials. When big industries have to solve the issues on plastics, we have the solutions. In 2019, the whole world was talking about plastic pollutions, but now the whole world is talking about the alternatives. We need to find alternatives if we want to cut waste before we ban all plastics. I was Megan, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much for providing such a comprehensive overview of what you have been doing within Marine Innovation. I think it is very timely to address the issue of plastic, among others, especially plastic packaging, and then the innovation you are creating by proposing the alternatives to different materials that are being used in the transportation and across food supply chains. And taking into account how shipping industry is creating the pollution nowadays and contributing to different levels of waste, this is more than relevant to look into alternatives, especially when, as you mentioned, it is possible to make profit and it is possible to have alternatives that work and create new market for those materials and spread the innovation. So thank you so much for sharing your business model with us. And having said that, I would like to continue with another innovative company, in short, Biki, and then give the floor to Mr. Muhammad Hafid Rozudin, who is CEO at Beraka Inovasi Kreatif Indonesia. Biki develops integrated technological innovations in agricultural commodities that produce a high value-added product and environmentally friendly ones that are beneficial to the society. To reveal more about your business operations, Mr. Rozudin, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Hello everyone. Let me introduce myself. My name is Muhammad Hafid Rosidin. You can call me Hafid. I'm from Indonesia. I'm the founder and CEO of Biki, startup from Indonesia, Berkah Inovasi Kreatif Indonesia. I'm very glad to be here and thanks for the change. I will present the topic circular economy using food production by products. Next. Our startup has missions to innovate in sustainable agriculture for the realization of food security and community welfare. Inspired by nature method of preservation, we made it our mission to build a barrier that could be applied for fruit and vegetables using edible materials that could slow down the rate of spoilage to help support program Sustainable Development Goals number 2, Zero Hunger, number 12, Responsible Consumption and Production, and also number 13, Climate Action. Next. So we get the data from FAO. The most food loss and waste in the world comes from fruits and vegetables communities. In developing countries like my countries, Indonesia, fruit and vegetables are wasted before reach the consumer or food loss. Data from Indonesian Development Planning Agency said that more than 63% fruits and vegetables loss of the total supply. The amount reached 20 million tons per year, and the financial loss reached 221 trillion rupiah or 15 billion US dollar per year. You can imagine, not only that, the formation of methane and carbon dioxide, which can cause global warming. So this is really a big problem. Next. Our startup brings the solution from this problem. For food loss, we make innovation, edible coating. The brand is Citasil, nature, kaitasan biomaterial-based protection for fruits and vegetables that can help last longer and has been proven to extend shelf life of more than 30 fruits and vegetables commodities at least 2 until 3 times. For food waste, we conducted a campaign for the movement to reduce food and vegetables to start develop products for B2C markets. Why us? Because our product, you cannot see it, you cannot taste it, you cannot smell it, but this our is powerful. Next. Our startup innovations inspired by circular economy concept and business model. The main material of Citasil is a chitosan biomaterial that we are extracted from shrimp cells, which is the byproduct from frozen shrimp industry. We also produce biomaterial chitin from agriculture function to biosupplement, biofungicide, and bioimmunizers. You know, my country, Indonesia, is the largest shrimp exporter in the world. But you must know more than 50% of frozen shrimp processing industry produce shrimp cells that are unutilized. Even the Indonesian Ministry of Maritime Affairs and Fisheries targets 250% increase in frozen shrimp export. Can you imagine how many shrimp cells are produced each year? And every single year, this is continue to be left without integrated solution. So start from 2018, we start the trial and research, utilize this byproduct into biomaterials and process byproduct with product with high value added. And in 2019, we started to develop product Citasil edible coating from chitosan biomaterials. Next. This is our product works. The product Citasil adds a layer of tasteless, odorless, nature-based protection on the surface of fruit and vegetables. This helps keep moisture in, oxygen out, and improve antibacterial activity, which means produce last longer. Next. This is our sustainability impact in business impact brief. The environmental impact of our startup is reduce unused shrimp cells, which is the raw materials, reduce plastic packaging, reduce food loss and waste of fruit and vegetables, which is the most waste food community in my country, Indonesia, and contribute in environmental movement to prevent climate change with reduced methane and carbon dioxide. The social impact of our startup is improved community welfare, especially for farmers, from food loss risk reduction by reducing more than 2,000 tons in 2021, help balance the supply and demand of our food system so that more people can be fed, and educate the public not to throw away food carelessly because there are still many of our people who are hungry. And the economic impact of our startup is that we can empower the surrounding environment, improve the living standard, reduce unemployment, and also increase the state income. Next. And this is sustainability life cycle in an ET matrix, material, energy, and toxicity matrix. We have the commitment using the renewable material, low energy emission, and doesn't produce toxic byproducts. Next. The challenges of the realization circular economy business model of our startup is educate the customers, the government regulations, supporting facilities, technology, and better business model. All of these challenges can be minimized by working together and collaborating with the various stakeholders, because we believe when we are solving big problem, then we must join hand together. Next. The potential of food processing byproduct materials is really big. All of byproduct, especially in the food and agricultural industry, have a great potential to be reprocessed into the biomaterial or high value-added product that have a great potential both domestically and exported abroad with various innovation and the technology. Next. Okay, this is the last. Let's solve this problem together, because this really big problem, food security and community welfare for a better place. I hope what I can present can be useful for everyone. I'm so sorry I cannot join in the Q&A session because I have other scheduled agenda. If you have any questions and or potential collaboration, you can contact me via WhatsApp, Instagram, or email. Thank you for having me on this forum. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Hafid. I think this is very interesting what you are doing, because you are not only doing business operation that is obviously profitable, you are making we are making profit out of waste, and you call it very nicely waste valorization. But what you have just explained, you are not only contributing to different levels of waste reduction, but also to circularity and to education and different levels of changing of attitudes among stakeholders involved in the process. So thank you so much for sharing with us this business case study. As already indicated, you can already see on our project page from day one, all the presentations are already uploaded, and unfortunately you cannot join us for the Q&A session. However, your presentation will be uploaded there, as well as the contact details that you kindly agreed to share with the audience that will be visiting and hopefully checking out what you are doing. So thank you so much. And now I would like to move to the next business case study and invite Ms. Gillian Santos. She's the founder and CEO of B2B agri-tech startup that is named Anihan Technologies, and they are on the mission to reduce food loss. So it is in similar category as Biki before, mostly operating in Asia and help building competitive agri-value chains through deep technologies. Dear Gillian, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Gillian Santos, the CEO of Anihan Technologies. We're an early stage startup that measures storage quality and spoilage rate, and we provide fresh produce growers and distributors with the information that they need to maintain freshness and ultimately reduce food loss. Next slide, please. I'd like to introduce you to Martin and Josie, one of the thousands of people responsible for putting food to the market and to our table. Next slide. Every day, they have to face the challenges of manually tracking their operations, delays in food testing, and meeting strict quality standards for local and international distribution. Now, both Martin and Josie want to deliver and supply fresh food all the time. But when handling fresh food, you need to maintain its quality or it'll end up in a bin. And it doesn't end there. A lot of fresh food gets lost at each stage of the supply chain before it even reaches consumers. In the Philippines, 10 to 50% of food is lost during production and the post-harvest stage. And this is costing our crop industry roughly $2.5 billion per year. Next slide. Reducing food loss is a cheaper approach than increasing production. It's also a critical element in creating sustainable food systems. So that's where we come in. Next slide, please. Anitech provides growers and distributors with actionable data on storage quality and spoilage rate through our sensor systems and platform. Our SQS system can monitor environmental conditions that impact food quality and yield. Our FQS system can detect pesticide level and predict spoilage rate. The data collected from our systems is sent to the cloud and visualized through our dashboards. We also give automated notifications to users via SMS and weekly summary reports. Next slide. If a grower like Martin avails our monitor and trace plan, we can help him monitor his greenhouse remotely and save 9 hours in data processing. Once he receives our notification, he would now know when to turn his misting equipment on or off to lessen heat stress. If a distributor like Josie avails our monitor and optimize plan, she'll know which batch can be sent to farther regions and which needs to be sold faster because it's about to spoil. Next slide. With this complete and flexible solution, Anitech helps Martin and Josie deliver good quality fresh goods to their customers and save 5% of their costs due to spoilage. As a result, they can distribute more by spending less resources, helping them become more competitive in the market. Next slide. Anitech disrupts the status quo of doing invasive testing, running them in a lab, and sending reports several days later. With Anitech, you no longer have to invest in bulky and expensive lab-type equipment or commercial sensors that can only monitor one type of environmental condition. And unlike other current solutions in the market, Anitech is the only startup in the Philippines that can give you real-time, actionable insights from production up to the post-harvest stage of the supply chain. Next slide. The fruit and vegetable market of the Philippines is valued at $12.7 billion. We have a serviceable addressable market of $48.6 million consisting of high-value crops, and over the next 5 years, Anitech intends to capture 5% of the high-value crop market, and maybe over in the next 10 years, we would want to penetrate the ASEAN region as well. Next slide, please. At the early stages, we are looking to partner with farm co-ops, universities, and NGOs for capacity building activities. We also need to partner with food safety agencies to recognize Anitech as a commercial standard for food quality testing. And lastly, we need to collaborate with government agencies and international organizations that can help Anitech be part of programs involved with making agricultural policies and roadmaps. Next slide. Anitech will be tapping into 3 revenue streams. For the monitor and trace plan, we require a $500 down payment to avail our system and charge a recurring fee of $100. For the monitor and optimize plan, we require a $2,000 down payment to avail our system and charge a recurring fee of $200. We also require a 1-year lock-in period for subscription, and we are both hardware and software as a service then. So we also plan to offer food loss analytic consulting services to government agencies, NGOs, and corporations. Next slide. In less than a year, we have a pilot test ready prototype for the SQS system. Next slide. Next slide, please. We've also won 4 competitions. Next slide. We've done 30 market validation interviews with 22 farmers in Bukidnon and 8 agribusinesses. Next slide, please. We partnered with Foodie Box Group Malaysia, became an EU Tech Chamber advocate, and an incubatee of the PhilDev Foundation. Next slide, please. We also managed to secure a startup collaboration agreement with Farm One and conducted a pilot test in their 100 square meter greenhouse. We also secured a letter of intent with MKP to do a pilot test in their 50 square meter hydroponic grow room. Next slide. This June, we intend to develop 2 more dashboards for our platform, create an improved version of our FQS system, and onboard 5 more early adopters for pilot testing. Next slide, please. By monitoring storage conditions, urban farmers, distributors, and exporters will be able to optimize their inventory, and ultimately, it will reduce food losses by 5% and increase yield by 3%. Next slide, please. Through the mass adoption of our solutions, Anitech will develop and continuously innovate deep technologies to promote the manufacturing industry here in the Philippines and make it more competitive. Next slide, please. As we continuously collect storage quality and food loss data, growers and distributors can maintain freshness longer throughout the supply chain. This will allow consumers to have better and easier access to good quality fresh food. Over time, Anitech aims to be this entire ecosystem that can help from analytics to extending shelf life to adding more sensors and even creating our own post-harvest facilities. Through Anitech, we want our country and other neighboring countries to become better providers of fresh crops, and it all starts by minimizing food loss. Next slide. This is our team. I am joined by my co-founders, Daniel, Paolo, and Anthony, where we have 20 years of combined research experience in the fields of data analytics, economics, environmental science, and material science. Our R&D advisor is my father, Dr. Santos, with more than a decade of experience in acquiring research grants. And Jimmy Lee is our startup advisor, with over 19 years of experience mentoring and managing startups. Next slide. So we are actively seeking partners, we're actively seeking grant funding and angel funding to improve our core technology and commercially deploy a system that has been tried and tested by our early adopters. Thank you, and we hope you can be part of Anitech's mission to reduce food loss in Asia.
Thank you so much, Julian, for this passionate presentation. As we can see, the issue of food loss is being actively tackled by different companies that are innovating and educating and building on the experience among generations. And then they are all looking actively for partnerships and collaboration, which is something that we are hoping to offer by providing the wide network. We have over 400 participants that have registered for this conference. And this is also something that we are hoping to contribute and ensure that there would be future collaboration after that event. That will not only help the companies, but will also help to address the issues related with food waste and food loss. And as you mentioned, among many points that your company is contributing to, also in the end of the day, enable consumer access to fresh food and eliminate waste that is unnecessary and currently happening, given ongoing challenges with food supplies nowadays. This is more timely than ever before to ensure the resilience of our food supply chains. Thank you so much. And then having said that, I would like to now invite you to another very interesting case study. And then we will have Mr. Felipe Nuncio, who is the founder of Agri Marketplace. And Agri Marketplace is a B2B cloud-based digital marketplace company that specializes in utilizing e-commerce and food traceability with blockchain to create more efficiency and transparency in food distribution. Dear Felipe, the floor is yours.
Hi. My name is Felipe Nuncio. I'm the founder of Agri Marketplace, and can we please move to the next slide? Okay, digital trading platform is a platform that combines, that puts together the needs of the farmers to sell their products and the food processors to find the right match from the producers, and that's the reason we have built this platform. I'm a farmer, and I also miss these kind of tools to sell my products better in the market. Can we move next? So the sellers, we are trying to solve a problem of accessing the buyers worldwide. There is a big problem and big constraints from the sellers to find the right seller in their markets, and also the buyers, the sellers and the farmers are so optimized around the world that by a digital trading platform we can easily find the perfect match for your needs and demands. Next. Right now, the process, a simple process, is illustrated in this picture, where you have to surpass so many different tasks until you have your transaction done. You have to combine so many different skills, so many different knowledge. So what we have done in the platform is to incorporate all those processes inside of a platform. Can you move next? And Agri Marketplace is doing everything that is concerned with regarding the transactions and the posting the offers, posting the bids, and then we rely on partners to do the rest of the jobs, like the tasks, like shipping, logistics, quality insurance, financial secure payments, and so on. So we are not only together working alone in this platform, but we are counting and relying on key partners to do the specific tasks to ensure that all the process from the farmers until the agro industry is covered by features in the platform. Can we move next? So this way, Agri Marketplace is a trading platform that does all the tasks from the farmers to the agro industry with no need of extra and additionality skills from the farmers or from the agro industries to do their deals. Can we move next? This is how it looks, the order board, where you can see in orange bids from the buyers, in blue some offers from the sellers. We can also find this case, and these examples use rice. You can also try to do a query to find the product you are looking for. Each of those squares are offers and bids, but of course, if you push that square, you can see all the detailed spec of these lots. We are also trading grains, nuts, and olive oil right now. We want to start coffee soon. Can we move next? And that's the go-to-market strategy. We have started in Portugal and Spain, then we have moved to France and the United States, special for nuts, California, and we aim to be global this year, okay? Next. Those are the main benefits and main constraints we can find in a trading platform like this. I think we can get more value for the crops, for the farmers, free access to global markets, so the farmers don't have to pay anything to post their offers. Transparency, because we see the prices of every lot available for a similar product that we have offered, and then we can check what kind of deals have made with similar products than us. Safety, because we have secure payment systems and checking quality for the product that are shipped before the shipping. Easy and convenience, because it's very easy to post an offer, it's very easy to negotiate the offer digitally, and it's very easy to deal and get the money for the crop. Main constraints: buyer resistance. The buyers have so much leverage with an opaque process for trading that we have right now, that they have quite resistance to move for digital, where we have much more balanced between the farmers and the buyers. Then the sellers, many of them have lack of digital skills, and of course we want to move to a more digital process. But for example, the sample handling, we have always to have persons managing that kind of procedures. So I think the future and the actual business model is a combination between the physical, personally management and the digital platform. Can we move next? Okay, the new challenge we have started in the second part of the last year is carbon farming. Can we move next? So the carbon farming comes from the needs of the food industry to offset their footprint, and also the potential capability of the farmers to generate their own carbon credits. So we have looked to this opportunity because we have a platform between these two parties, the farmers and the food industry, and we are starting to develop this process of generating in the voluntary markets for carbon, trying to approach the farmers, empower them to generate their own credits, and then post those credits in the platform to sell them to the industries and companies and services companies. Next. So the potential of these carbon credits is huge, as you know. We have enlarged the coverage of the markets, not only for the food industry, but also for services companies, and that's the model business we have built so far. We have already more than 8,000 hectares of farmers already in the program, and we are relying on INR and S317 to do all the assessment to the farmers and the certification for the carbon credits. It's important to say that we are building this business model based on carbon credits generated by measurable and measurable methodologies. So we are not estimating the sequestration or reduction of carbon in a certain farm based on estimation, but only by measurable methodologies and measuring samples and so on. And also we are certifying of course, based on the most recognized standards. And also, we are doing and generating those carbon credits in farmers close to the companies that want to buy them, in order to be able to those companies to state to their stakeholders that they are providing, they are buying and those carbon credits and leaving the benefits close to them in the close communities, in their countries, in their regions, and not in a far region and out of their countries. Next. So the benefits is more sustainability for EU farming sector. Companies have easy access to carbon credits, which is not easy right now. Local proximity, carbon credit generation. So companies can buy those carbon credits from local farmers. Currency and credibility. We are not estimating anything. We are only using the most demanding standards, and easy and convenient to buy and sell because we are using the same platform to do that. Main constraints: no free access for mandatory market. UE is limiting a lot the access for these voluntary markets. No rewards for early adopters. So the farmers that are already very sustainable don't have access to generate their own credits with the actual standards, what I think is wrong. Project activity adoption rates, it's not eligible when we have when it's not a new practice. It's not eligible to generate the credits, a changing of practice in the farms, which I think what we think it's not right as well. It's not the inclusive rule, but an exclusive rule. And many standards, they don't allow a multi-project flexibility to generate the credits. This is more technical, but it's also a big constraint. So next. This is what we have achieved so far. We have traded in 2021 more than 15 million euros in 2021. Of course, we expect to at least double this number this year, according with the sales we have so far until the middle of this, until the end of June. Forecasted until the end of June, and we think also carbon farming business will help us to increase these numbers. Next. So this is the team that made everything that we have achieved so far possible. And next, this is these are the awards that we have been recognized as one of the most innovative companies in Europe and in the world for these specific trading platforms space that we are moving. Thank you so far thank you for your availability and for this invitation for this presentation, and I will be available in questions and answers later on.
Thank you so much, dear Philip, for guiding us through the complexity of B2B marketplace solutions. I have to admit that I think the sophistication of the solutions you are providing is definitely something that everybody would be very much interested to dive into in greater detail. And then the complexity of the solutions, the way you are presenting it and trying to make it accessible to people that are trying to join the global marketplace, it's really impressive. So thank you so much for sharing your solutions with us. And then we hope to learn more as we progress during collaboration in partnership. And then having said that, I would like to now invite Amparo Roca, the Innovation Manager at AI Intelligence Talentum, It is also a company that is offering advanced technological solutions in the fields of Industry 4.0, food, energy, and IoT. AI Talentum developed and implements computer systems that are helping in decision-making based on quantitative statistical techniques and machine learning. And before I will pass the floor to Amparo, I just wanted to ask our audience for understanding, because we had some technological challenges, and then there might be a little bit of delay while we are connecting with her. Thank you, and then dear Amparo, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Beatrice. Hope you can hear me well during my presentation.
Yes.
Yes, I have some delay with the video, so I try to make it as good as possible. So, okay, again, hello to everyone. Thank you to the event for inviting us. So today I'm going to make an introduction about what we do. Then I will move to give some bits on how AI can contribute to sustainability. Next, I will present you a use case where we took part last year, and we'll end with some drivers and barriers for the implementation of AI in SMEs, food companies, and what we consider necessary to scale up. So next, please confirm me that we are in the slide that is like who we are, and now I can figure out what we are. Okay, so we are a Spanish technology-based company, as Bettina said, working on artificial intelligence and doing a special focus on predictive models, and with 5 main areas of activity like energy, food and environment, IoT, and Industry 4.0. And our mission is to transform data into valuable knowledge for companies by using AI. Next, please. Here you can see a sample of some recent projects. They vary from personalized nutrition with recommendations according to the profile of the user to food safety, food waste, and food friendship, but all of them having the use of AI in common to somehow improve processes or decision making. So next, please. So how AI can contribute to sustainability? One of the ways to the of emissions. Let's see it. So next, please. Okay, so we use to associate the application of artificial intelligence with business-related issues. However, it is a technology that reaches innovations in many different sectors. So in the context of sustainability, artificial intelligence is all in terms of efficiency and also reducing waste. Next, please. Okay. Give me a second. Okay, can you hear me well now? Okay, thank you. So here are some use cases of AI, some examples. The use of AI in the fight in climate change is a growing trend. And here we can see some examples on how it is being used. For instance, for tracking greenhouse gas emissions, industrial sites, or improving the energy efficiency of facilities at industrial processes. Also in the design of new products to reduce waste and emissions, for instance, during prototyping, production, and use. Also for inventory management, what improves demand planning and reduce food, product, and raw material waste. And another example is the route optimization and fleet management. Next, please. Broadly speaking, we can group the benefits that the use of AI promotes in the calculation of the carbon footprint into 3 groups. First one is automation and monitoring. use AI to automatically track emissions, a carbon footprint, for instance, operations data, corporate travel, IT equipment, materials, components, and so on. The second is prediction. AI helps cut future emissions across a company's carbon footprint related to carbon reduction efforts, new carbon methodologies, and future demand, and also reduction. As a result of the previous, company more accurately set, adjust, or achieve reduction targets. But if companies don't collect and analyze all data and emission factors, they cannot expect to have accurate results. That's very important. Next, please. All of the previous was the motivation for us to taking part in the project IFISCAN. It is a test bed to make the fish scanning industry a more sustainable one. Next, please. IFISCAN was a cross-kick action between 3 EITs with partners from Spain and Portugal, which are countries with an important fish scanning industry. And the test bed was deployed in Conservas Piñais, that is one of the oldest and most in the world from Portugal. So if you go there, I go green too. It's a software that we have developed for the quantification of environmental impact, the carbon emissions and water flow of industrial processes in food industry. Please. So regarding the motivation, we have to say that food loss and waste in the fish processing chain is a big problem, with approximately 35% of the input raw material being lost. And in the transformation process of tuna, only a 45% is canned. So here, digitization presents the transformation of companies toward a more sustainable model. With this in mind, the objective of IFISCAN was to value all the waste produced, measuring the losses, gathering low-level data, and bringing it to a decision-making level. Next, please. So remember what I mentioned before regarding collection and data analysis. Well, to solve that issue, we installed sensors on a smart device to obtain accurate data. Next, please. We started by sensorizing every stage of the process. So we got accurate information. Then the data was processed and stored in a database. And that is where the calculation of environmental impact is done and where the AI algorithms are running. So next, please. This comprehensive monitoring provides the knowledge of the formation of the carbon and water footprint in each of the specific processes of the fish scanning industry. And using the AI, the manager can know the effect of the operational decisions on the carbon and water footprint, or the level of waste that the processes are generating. Next, please. We also provide specific information very useful for the decarbonization plan. On the left, you have a summary of the environmental impact of the activity by scope and graphically, and on the right, you have the economic information on carbon prices. So this information helps companies assess the investment needs to reduce or mitigate the environmental impact they are creating. Next, please. AI also enables the use of predictive tools, so we can generate simulations of future scenarios, being able to anticipate the level of emissions, water consumption or food waste of the production process. Next, please. So regarding the conclusions and results of IFISCAN, we have that AI contributed to 10% less raw material losses, the optimization of water and energy, varying from between 5–10% less energy consumption and between 5–20% less water consumption, depending on the specific process of the production chain. Sorry. and it provided predictive power to the decision process, helping the companies better planning their decarbonization plans and mitigation activities. Next, please. So we are ending with some drivers and barriers for the use and implementation of AI in SMEs food companies. I think that this slide is missed, right? Driver and barriers. Okay, sorry. Okay, so yes, so I just wanted to mention that for scaling up, we believe that the most important thing is made of environmental impact easy for companies. For that, we are working in having a big catalog with as many possible inside the food industry. So this that any on environmental impact. And for that, what we aim is to collaborate with different types of industry inside the food sector. And that's all from my side. Sorry for the technical. Apart from that, I hope you have learned a bit about how we are using it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Amparo. I think for the most of it, we could understand what you are saying quite well. Just towards the very last slide, actually, the connection became a little bit choppy. But we had another yet example, thanks to you sharing with us your business model about how we can eliminate inefficiency using technology to optimize the use of the existing resources. And then it can very fast result in the elimination of the food waste, looking into optimization also helps to reduce monetary losses and overall contributes to sustainability. So thank you so much for sharing those examples. And then I am clearly out of my depth regarding the highly sophisticated technological solutions in the agri-food sector, but this is more than ever important to have such an excellent experts as all of you sharing with us what you are doing. And having said that, I would like to now invite everybody to the Q&A session. We got some questions from the audience. And then but then I would just like to start with the overarching questions about what is that you need to enable you to scale up your operation or to go bigger or do more, because you have all mentioned in your presentation about the importance of collaboration. But if you would also pinpoint what is this one thing that really can trigger the change and ensure that we are all moving towards circular business model and it becomes the imperative and something that is our reality, not just at the moment very still small area of operating, especially in Asia and Europe. When we are looking at the percentages, the technology innovating companies are not the majority. They are still leading the way, but not being the major force. So this is something we would like to look at. And what is that is really blocking you? When you think about how you would like to expand, how much more you could do, what would be the thing that is really an obstacle that you can pinpoint to us? And then if you can, there are two questions from the audience. One is why organic farming is not yet popular and failed to replace existing practices. And another one, it's quite specific, which is asking Agri-MP, does the seller and buyer arrange their own logistics or you have a third-party company involved? So I believe it is to agri marketplace specific question. So if you can also address when you are talking about enablers and barriers, that would be fantastic. And maybe we can start the Q&A with the order of proceeding, starting with Chiara. If you can react to that question, that would be excellent.
Okay, all right. I'll try to ask at my best. So regarding the barriers, that's a very broad question. Let's say that there are some different things we can think of. And for example, regarding agriculture, I think that it's important to distinguish, how can I say, like environmental barriers regarding, for example, the approach farmers and the whole agricultural sector often has toward technologies. And this actually forced us to review sometimes our strategy, to change approach, to transform also our business models. So this is, I mean, every startup knows that they change a lot, and it's always, sometimes it's often improvising in front of a market. So this is for sure at first, this has been an important barrier that we managed to overcome, I think, and we are still struggling with sometimes. And how can I say, let's call them sometimes institutional barriers, and I think this can also be linked with the question regarding organic and inorganic farming, because, for example, we saw that what really helped us has been, in a certain moment, a political interest in fostering the development of our type of solution. So there has been a moment of hype, let's say, regarding our technologies in the agricultural sectors. And so this has for sure helped us in finding our own way and finding new partnerships, which has been definitely the main, one of the main lever for us, so which allows us to grow. And at the same time, when we see that there is a shift in political interests, also at local level, I'm talking about, so like politics that changes in time quite often, this always become a sort of barrier and a challenge. And maybe actually I'm not an expert regarding environmental agricultural politics in Asia, but what happened in Europe, I think, is that organic farming really speed up when the organic label was created, and when European Commission and member states decided to invest a lot in organic farming. And this is when actually it's still growing, the phenomenon, but I think that we can say that in Europe now organic farming is kind of established, is well known by consumers. And this has happened actually in large part because member states provided funds to farmers to change their habits. So I'm not an expert regarding Asian politics, but I think that this is it when we talk about large scale change. And yeah, I hope I was clear.
Thank you so much, Chiara. Can we now ask Megan to react to the question about enablers and barriers, and also if you would like to touch upon organic farming, the floor is yours.
Okay. Yes. In the point of eco-friendly industry, yes. Let me talk first about the barriers. So when we started our business, actually, we started, 2019. But when we first started, in the beginning of 2010, so everybody was saying that plastic is such a most the cheapest and is easiest way to as a common items. But what are you doing for this? But we have been working for this. We have been fundamentally changing the raw materials if we can stop the plastics. So I would say that actually, yes, the very first thing is the prices. Actually, everybody admits that, yes, eco-friendly, that's fine, that's very good. It's going to be very, good for the environment. But at the end, when we talk about in the business way, So everybody's saying that, oh, yes, the prices. Actually, yes, the price. I mean, in the world that, we cannot beat the price of the plastics at this moment. But however, still people are saying that, they compare it like how much more expensive. So for me, I would say that, like, the prices, so we always, have the barriers, to go further. And the second thing is that maybe the awareness, like, so it has been changed a lot. Since the past few years, but it's still saying that, like, when we talk about like eco-friendly, like, products, that people and even countries, like even the regions, really, they are not very, like, eager to to ban the single-use plastics. But however, so what we have been doing is that, yes, we believe, we still believe that, like, everything, from, like I mentioned, that, the raw materials to the productions still, needs to be safe for the environment and also for our future generations as well. So yes, and enablers is that, I would say that for marine innovation, so we are like, focusing on, and then the raw materials, itself. So for us, like, we can probably say that, we are not using any like chemicals, and then we are reusing the byproduct, which is, as the raw materials. So this is something that our, like, consumers, like, customers, like, our business partners are asking for that. And then now they are ready, to, and then they really want to accept, they are really demanding us, just to change the, the raw materials. This is something that, enable us, for, yes, keep moving forward, towards the next business models and the business cases. Thank you.
Thank you so much for providing such a comprehensive answer. And if now I could move with the same question to Jillian.
Yeah, thank you. So in terms of barriers or risks with Anitech, we anticipate 4. So the first one would be like a financial risk or financial barrier. With a startup like ours, it's very capital intensive. We would need a steady amount of funding for manufacturing, research, training, market awareness campaigns. So a way to mitigate that would be going for grant funding or VC funding, or definitely aggressive B2B sales of the systems that we're providing to our customers. The second would be a technology barrier. So definitely it will take some time to accelerate the maturity of the sensors from beyond the lab to making it commercially ready. And of course, there's additional unforeseen costs in manufacturing. So a way to mitigate that would be more pilot tests with different early adopters, partnership with research universities or accelerators that cater to deep tech startups, and definitely pivoting or iterating when necessary. The third would be a hiring barrier. I think everyone across the world is experiencing that tech talent crunch. And for a startup like ours, we would definitely need like teams of engineers experienced in IoT, material science, web developers, data science, and agricultural scientists. So these are very rare fields here in the Philippines. So we would really need to go into the universities that have high research capabilities. And I guess the last one would definitely be political barriers. Since the agricultural sector here in the Philippines and in most of ASEAN is very slow in adopting new technologies, there's a reluctance of agribusinesses that want to go into digitizing, and there's definitely not a lot of there's not enough local and national government policies and initiatives that can push the sector to doing food loss reduction initiatives or even adopting new technologies. So a way to mitigate that would really be for us startups to be part of roundtable discussions, policymaking initiatives and creation of white papers. So in terms of like scaling up, we would really need to be introduced to the right experts, the right people, the right incubators and accelerators that cater to agri-tech or deep tech startups. We would want to be connected to manufacturing partners as well, and business matchmaking, setting up pilot programs with different agribusinesses who want to try out our solution. So yeah, I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jillian, for like listing like multiple areas we could look at in also our future work. to make sure that we can also provide some support for the companies and agricultural sector and agri-food sector per se, including also technological innovation. And then having said that, I would like to move to Philip and also remind the question about the seller and buyer that are arranging, whether they need to arrange their own logistic or there is some other solution to connect different parties involved.
Yeah. So thank you so much. I'm going to try to be brief, but it's going to be difficult with so many things to say. I feel completely aligned with many things that Gillian just said now in the last intervention, but trying to be clear and quick. I would say that I would say the main barriers we are facing, and getting rid of those barriers, we can scale up easier. So one of the questions is one of the answers will answer to the other one. So I will start doing saying that one of the main barriers we have is a financial barrier. It's not only for a startup doing innovation like us. It's not only you don't only have to do everything well in terms of markets, coding, the right features for the right markets, but then you have to be an expert in financial raising. And being in Portugal is a big disadvantage, but because we look at different platforms trying to do the same as us, some of them are trying to copy the same solution, and only for being in a space where the financial resources are bigger and easy to access, they have a big advantage than compared with us. So this is critical. I know that if we were founded in different countries around the world with a much more sophisticated and developed space for development of startups, will be on position of doing much more funding raisings and have more financial resources to scale up. And that's a very strong barrier. Second, I think I would choose markets because market have some barriers concerning early adopters. When we are trying to put a sophisticated solution in the hand of people that have an average of above 60 years old, and some of them, they still have mobiles with buttons. They don't have an internet account. So this is a strong barrier. But I will combine these markets with culture and geography. I think we are based in Portugal, in Europe, but it's completely different to do a scale up of a business in Europe than to do a scale up in United States, because they speak all the same language. They have not culture barriers among the countries, and we have to take into account in almost 30 countries in Europe. Every time you go to a different country is a different financial system, a different tax system. You have to speak the mother language to be credible. So the barriers of culture scale up in Europe is much bigger challenge than to do in different parts or geographies in the world. The third, and probably the most complicated to overcome is the politicals and regulations. As you could understand by my presentation, the only reason why I believe the carbon farming projects is not scaled up in Europe is basically because UE is not doing the right regulation, and they are not developing the right standards in order to scale up and to make it as large as possible in an inclusive regulation where every farmer can move and convert them to a more sustainable farming practices, generating their own credits in a free open market. So if that free open market it's not active, is because the regulation doesn't allow it. So we try the regulation to be as much adapted to our business as possible, but we never expect that the regulation works against the scale up of a sustainable and more sustainable world. But in fact, is what it worked. In fact, it's what is happening right now in Europe in what concerns the carbon farming project and carbon farming business. So those are the three main constraints and the three main barriers. And if we get rid of each one of them, probably we will scale up much quicker and much easier. Going to the two questions that have been made in the question and answer forum, I will go to the logistic partners in Agri-Marketplace. So we are relying on a logistic partner hand-to-hand solution logistic service provider that is ORE, but it's not a mandatory. If you want to use the logistics, we can take care of it, incorporated in the platform. So you only have to request for a price for the service you want, for the customs, for everything, and we will take care of every logistic services around the world. If you don't need that service, it's not mandatory. You can do it by your own. Okay. Concerning the last question, is the organic development, organic production. I totally agree with I think Chiara that have told us that in Europe, organic farming is increasing so much. So by the applications that farmers have made in Europe, I think every year we more than double the area that is being converted to organic farming and organic production modes. But nevertheless, I would like to leave two main concerns about these organic farming developments. I think organic farming in Europe are facing, because I don't know organic farming in different parts of the world. I only know organic farming sector in Europe specifically, and I think they are struggling about two issues that must be fixed and clarified in order to have a larger coverage in Europe. First of all, is credibility. How much of this organic farming is in real organic? Because it's quite easy as a farmer to do organic without doing organic. So I think we have to be sure that when we stamp a product as organic, we have to be sure that it's coming following all the rules to be organic. Second is the feasibility. Why? Because there are still many crops where we cannot find solutions to convert them in organic. And I can tell you one example, for example, rice that I produce, and I've been making a lot of studies and a lot of trips trying to know many people around the world, trying to know the best practices and the benchmarking to convert my crop in organic, and I can't do it in a feasible and profitable way. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the comprehensive answer, and both about enablers and barriers and regarding the farming and specific question to your business model. And I would like to also try if we have still connection with Amparo and she could react to those questions. Amparo, are you with us?
Yes, hopefully you can hear me well. Okay, so, well, regarding our organic production, we are not so much in the field because we are in the part of technology provider, but I can give you our feelings regarding the drivers and barriers. SMEs, but mainly European SMEs companies for not adopting technologies based on AI for improving their processes. So we conducted a survey in 2020 between near 500 SMEs from European companies from agri-food sector, and we found that the main drivers are granting access to practical environments where they can see the benefits and the return, or they can see the proof that the adoption of this kind of technology is profitable for them. In the same vein, the distribution of success case by other players in the food industry was identified as a key driver for adoption this kind of technologies or solutions. And finally, near 50% of the interview believe that more funding plans at European or national level would lower the barriers for the adoption of AI, as the lack of economic resources to invest in AI solutions also represents another serious limiting factor for companies, and especially small and medium companies adopting this kind of solution. And regarding the barriers, we also found that almost 50% of the companies declare to have less than the best that are available in a company for processing data, and only 4% of the companies that we surveyed declare to have data engineers in the team. So one of the big issues for SMEs within the agri-food sector is to recruit and retain staff with sufficient digital skills, and also because those profiles Sorry, I lost the connection for a while.
Yes, we could hear you quite well for a while, and then suddenly it became really patchy. I'm just not sure what was I assume you were concluding your answer, so maybe we can try again to make the conclusion, and then I will just ask final question from this panel. Okay, I don't think it works at the moment, so let's try.
Okay,
let's try to allies with our technical team, and then we will try to connect again for the last question. I just would like to ask to all of you, because you have mentioned multiple things regarding scaling up your operations, what are the barriers, what are enablers. Mostly we are looking at the things that are quite common, to be very frank, to all the sectors, which are looking at the collaboration with universities, support of the technology, legal support and policy support for the technological advancement, how to make sure that the technologies become mainstream, and I assume therefore also more affordable, because obviously the early adopters and innovators are usually facing the biggest risk related with testing new things. And then the market sometimes is not yet ready to accept and run with it. But that's also the nature of being the innovator and like trying new things. And then while many times I've heard issue about grants and financing, what I would like to try to get from all of you, which is also something we would try to push, because what will happen after this conference, we will prepare the policy briefs, and then we will try to reach out to different governments using our connection to Asia Europe meeting, which is the political process, but also through our collaboration with Grow Asia to World Economic Forum, and then using different stakeholders we have collaborating with us to have to make an attempt to have unified message. So if you would have one wish that what you would think would make the biggest difference for you. Like, so if this would happen from tomorrow, you know that it will be a breakthrough, and then you can expand, or you can become, or your everyday life will become easier. So if you can just prioritize one enabling factor or one element of the ecosystem that could help you, and then just conclude with this our session, that would be wonderful. Because if it would be as easy as saying, oh, we just need more money, I believe this would have already been done, because from what you said in your networks, you already had access to different kind of fundings, you won awards, you are innovating. So it might be that this is like a better arrangement for existing funding, but also you mentioned a couple of other things. So if I can just get briefly one thing from you that you would like to conclude, that we can also prioritize in our messages after this event, we would be really grateful. And maybe we can again start with Chiara, if that is okay, and then continue.
Yes, okay, that's not an easy question. And let's see, I think actually it's, can I say two things? One is very difficult, but there are two things that I believe are very are crucial, and they have already emerged from what we have been saying till now. I think the first one is regulation, and I agree with Felipe, it's standardization. And I mean, this applies quite everywhere. It's related to how to fire, but also how to access funding. And so this is very general and broad. And the second one is education. I don't know if it's related to Italy or it's more general, but I think that if universities, if technical schools, if there is the willingness to work together to increase knowledge in farmers or in actors in the system, I think this is another crucial barrier that we can overcome. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Chiara. Can we now hear from Megan?
Yes, actually, I mean, the question is very important for us as well. Yes, actually, I mean, yes, we have participated in many different, like, I mean, international, like, grants, like, competitions, and then, yes, as a result, then we have been able to achieve, I mean, all the, I mean, good awards, and also coming together with some grants as well. But in other hands, that, I mean, like everybody mentioned that, I mean, as a startup, so this is kind of like, I mean, for example, like marine innovation is like, I mean, we have good, I mean, innovative, like, technologies and everything. But the thing is that, I mean, we are just a startup, and then we are doing the outsourcing. But that's why, I mean, we have been trying to get, I mean, to raise a funding. But however, like, I mean, but the gap, like, to go through, to get the funding is not very easy. Like, I mean, all the, like, investors, like, I was saying that, okay, I mean, yeah, I'm not saying that, yes, and then I'm not talking better about them, but yeah, I mean, because they're focused, and then what they want to have, like, I mean, 2-3 years, I mean, that, I mean, they can get the money back very easily, and then with, like, high profits. That's why, I mean, for us, like, I mean, because like, I mean, the manufacturers, like, I mean, the products that, I mean, the business models we have is like, I mean, it's kind of like, I mean, time consuming. Like, I mean, it's not, I mean, we don't really make profits. I mean, yeah, I mean, with, I mean, like, high end, like, I mean, machines or facilities that will help us, I mean, to increase our sales. But the fact is that, like, I mean, it's always like, I mean, it's kind of like, I mean, you know, like, we always read that, I mean, the ball is in not our, like, I mean, net, like, I mean, so, I mean, it's not
okay,
very
so can I just conclude that the issue is about access to funding? This is what you are saying that would help?
Yes, that would help. Like, yes, this is something that, I mean, yeah, I would like to mention about.
Okay, thank you so much. Can we now move to Jillian?
Yeah, so I guess if I had one wish, it would definitely be having direct access or connections with government agencies or international organizations that could help Anitech be part of programs involved in making global agri-value chain policies, roadmaps, plans, and standards. Because, you know, having them recognize us as a commercial standard for food traceability, food quality testing, and or food loss reduction can get all stakeholders of the agri supply chain, you know, on board to use our system. Secondary wish would definitely be working with bigger agribusinesses or bigger agricultural corporations, because I feel like if we prove that our system can work with corporations like them, it would be a little bit easier doing fundraising, a little bit.
Okay, thank you so much. Dear Philip, can we move now to your one wish? I think you are muted.
Yeah, sorry. Look, my wish will be definitely to have a big revolution in carbon farming regulation and politics. So if you think about the actual situation of carbon farming, you have one standard based in Vira, standard based in US, and the gold standard based in UK, but you don't have a standard for UE. And instead of each country develop its own standard, it should be very useful that we have a new standard for carbon farming, and a standard that can be possible to include everyone that wants to move for a more sustainable farming practices. So an inclusive standard, and also based on these carbon farming projects, to open the mandatory markets to a open, free, voluntary market. So everyone can generate their own carbon credits and sell their own carbon credits generated in their farms to every company and industries all over Europe and the world. This is my wish.
Thank you so much. And I just would like to check if we have better connection with Amparo at this stage, so we can check about her wish. Amparo, are you?
I can try, but
okay,
I'm
let's
not
try.
sure. Yes, can you hear me? Okay,
Yes.
so yes, my wish is to have it's something that has been already said. Clear standards and clear regulations, clear or straightforward and homogeneous standards and regulations. So we can we are not obliged to deal with too many standards, too many regulations, because I'm doing more focus on the technology part, and that's my wish. That's my wish. Standards and regulations, but more homogeneous and straightforward.
Thank you so much for bringing this up. So I am just getting ready to conclude the session with the main message, or the key message being that by popular demand, it seems like having the clear regulation and standards, but not only in Europe, but also in Asia, would be something to definitely look for. And I couldn't agree more as well, because when we were preparing for this conference and we were looking at even data and what is happening in Asia and Europe, the standards and the variety of approaches is overwhelming. And then what is also considered innovation in one country might not be considered the same way in another country. And data collection and the approaches, and especially for emerging trends and new technologies, this is challenging. And if we pair it up with funding, and then especially also looking at the things and solutions that are related with carbon funding or carbon financing, that would be also something that that might definitely tip the scale. And having said that, I would like to really thank you all for taking time and contributing to our discussion. And then we are looking forward to other events and staying in touch. And I also would like to compliment you on behalf of all the participants and organizers for the excellent work you are doing in making a difference. Thank you so much, everybody. Very good morning and good afternoon to everybody. We are now proceeding with the next agenda item of our conference that is related to rapporteurs' presentations and expert commentary. So what we prepared for you in this session is looking towards what happened yesterday. We had two streams in which we have inputs from different experts. One stream was looking specifically at the enabling conditions that are helping to decarbonize existing business practices in the agri-food supply chain. And the other one was focusing on innovations and greening supply chains. And as you can imagine, we are kind of circulating along the same lines, looking towards what is important and needed for SMEs to decarbonize. And having said that, we would have now the presentations for two rapporteurs, Dr. Luca Kosciema and Ami Chua, that will provide us with the overview of what has happened yesterday. And further on, we will have commentary from experts that are also working with SMEs and in the agri-food sector and overall looking towards circular transitions in the both Asia and Europe context. And having said that, I would like to introduce Dr. Luca Kosciema. He's the research program manager at Hot or Cool Institute. That is, Hot or Cool is a public interest think tank that explores the intersection between society and sustainability. Luca, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Gina. And yeah, I prepared couple of slides where I tried to summarize the main points of the interesting discussions that have been going on yesterday for stream 1. Next slide, please. Before digging into what are the challenges that were expressed and then going through the solutions, one kind of overarching problem or overarching idea that was emergent from the discussion is that in order to decarbonize agri-food, we really need to act as a system. So all actors in the agri-food systems will need to share the same goal of decarbonization and also the same level of ambition. So not just reducing emissions per se, but reducing it to the extent that is needed, for example, to meet or to contribute meeting the goals of the Paris Agreement. And in this context, SMEs play an important role as enablers, but at the same time, they would have to be enabled by policy and other overarching structures in order to create the condition for this decarbonization. And this is true, of course, for all of the other actors, including consumers and producers along the agri-food system. So more specifically, some of the problems that were discussed for the decarbonization of agri-food were how to transit or how to realize the transition to low-carbon diets in the current context of rising meat demand in Asia and of very high meat consumption levels in Europe in particular. Was also highlighted that the inherent inefficiency of current food systems is an important problem to tackle, as they consume a lot of resources in not a very effective way, and this, of course, poses challenges for decarbonization. Then lack of transparency and traceability was also a challenge highlighted, and one of the elements that really emerged, I think, throughout the whole conference is the lack of support for scaling up agri-food innovation and startups. Next slide, please. When it comes to the enablers, I've summed these up into 4 points, which you would see in this slide and the next. The first one is on finance and markets. So there was a lot of talking about missing supporting structures for SMEs to be able to realize decarbonization. This means a structure that assist SMEs to have access to funding, that in most cases is there, but SMEs may lack the ability to access it. So they will need support for that. Same is true for access to talents and markets. And also, there is a lack of the recognition of what is the role of SMEs in our decarbonization challenge. So here, both public policy and other enablers had to kind of align to assist SMEs in these regards for finance and access to markets. Another point is on data and transparency. There was a lot of talking about focusing on really the emission hotspots. Sometimes there is a lot of focus on areas of the agri-food system that actually do not account for a big share of carbon emissions, while we have to start from what science says. We know where the emissions are, so these areas where the emissions are more prevalent should be the focus of interventions for realizing decarbonization. And more in terms of transparency and traceability, one possible enablers or solution that was also discussed was the use of blockchain technology to help us track where all the emissions are, for example, in the life cycle of a particular food product. Next slide, please. The last two areas that were discussed were efficiency. So one enabler for decarbonization is to reduce the use of resources from agriculture by using resources in a more efficient way. This could be done through practice such as regenerative or precision agriculture, and also by reducing food waste and food loss in the overall system through, for example, upcycling. Food waste is a particularly important pressure point because by reducing food waste, you would allow to reduce emissions pretty much overall the entire agri-food system, as food waste, of course, entails emission from production, consumption, and then also from the management of the food waste. Very important also and discussed in the whole conference was the development of meat alternatives. We need to have structures that enhance the adoption potential of low carbon diets and meat alternatives. They would have to be perceived increasingly as feasible solutions that are adoptable by people. So this doesn't just mean adopting or developing new meat alternatives, but also creating an environment then make these meat alternatives desirable for consumers, and one possible choice also in terms of affordability. So these were the points and the enablers that were discussed mostly. Of course, there were other specific points that were also brought forward, but yeah, I tried my best to synthesize everything.
Thank you so much, Luca, for providing the overview of the discussions during Stream 1. This is not the end yet. However, I would like to now invite Ami Melissa Chua. She's a country director of Philippines Partnership for Sustainable Agriculture. And PPSA is a multi-stakeholder partnership platform that aims to engage smallholder farmers and market players towards social and economic growth and competitive advantage. AMI manages the overall execution of PPSA's strategic vision, supporting the development of sustainable and inclusive agricultural development in the Philippines. Dear AMI, the floor is yours to tell us what has happened during Stream 2.
Thank you so much, Gina. Good evening from the Philippines. It is a privilege to report, of course, the presentations and discussions yesterday under Stream 2, SMEs, Decarbonization Pathways, Innovation for a Cleaner Supply Chain. Yesterday, Stream 2, like the rest of the sessions, had a superstar panel moderated by Weili Wu of Croatia, who shared with us climate-smart innovations from various parts of the world. We had Don Tan of Pindodo from China, Yoon-Sil Choi of the government of Korea, Vikram of Agtual from India, Etienne of Rice from France, and also Julia Dalmadi of Transfood Mission in Hungary. With the panel presentations, we validated the various innovator SMEs and governments indeed take several steps forward in thinking and building processes to respond to the challenges presented by Luca earlier in his report on Stream 1, while helping farmers increase yields and income. On the next slide, you will find that their presentations, when put together, evidence that along the supply chains, we will see numerous opportunities to innovate towards making practices more cleaner and sustainable. Some of these decarbonization pathways could be in the form of, number one, provision of support to help farming communities identify and weigh risks properly from the production to the post-harvest phases to make appropriate decisions. We saw this presented by Agtwal as ENVforum showcased their monitoring, reporting, and verification platform for climate-smart agriculture. Next, interventions to lessen food loss and food waste, whether via a streamlined distribution or transportation e-commerce platform, as shared by Pindodo, via upcycling, or diversifying value-adding products by checking what resources are available and turning them into new nutritious products, as shared by Transfood Mission. And lastly, the provision of financing and capability building support. RISE shared with us how their carbon removal projects could help achieve a net zero future. Well, we were greatly impressed by this climate-smart innovations. The questions that then lingered were, how do they do this? How do they achieve scale? The discussions yesterday also touched on some of the factors that enable these SMEs to reach scale. On the next slide, we will see some of the responses presented yesterday under Stream 2. Number one, via service providers. As shared yesterday, there are millions of farms in the world, and it is a fact that a single innovator SME cannot reach each of the farms. Paul of Grow Asia in another session yesterday also brought this up and discussed that service SMEs are needed to serve as trusted agents, medium, and catalysts. The panel yesterday presented that aside from these service SMEs, farmer organizations and other nonprofit groups have critical roles to play in reaching out to more farmers. I think it was Pindodo who shared with us how they are maximizing their existing technology to connect with other innovators and serve more. On the next click, please. The Q&A part yesterday touched on the role of younger generations as agents of change who could potentially lead a movement towards collective behavior change that is supportive of decarbonization. The young ones, who are seen as more adaptive and tech-savvy, should be engaged to serve as leaders and active players in decarbonization strategies. On the next click, further, we've also noted during the presentations the important role of creating an enabling environment and more actively pursuing and advocating system change to support all of these interventions. For example, the Korean government via UNSIL shared about the support being provided by the government via regulatory and support policy. The panel also zoomed in on the role of other enablers in promoting governance, establishing monitoring structures, tools and frameworks, and providing access to financing, among others. On the next slide, it was, I think, Julia of Transfood Mission, and agreed upon by the rest of the panel, who emphasized the role of partnerships or co-opetition, as how Julia put it, towards an open and continuous flow of ideas or knowledge sharing between actors across the food systems. Then also related to this, it was RISE who emphasized on trust, that a high level of trust is needed to pursue out-of-box decarbonization projects such as carbon removal. To end, truly, with the numerous decarbonization projects being implemented by the SMEs, we could conclude that agri-SMEs have a great potential to lead decarbonization of the sector, while we also engage in a system-based participatory approach in adapting to the changing needs of the food production and consumption. That's it. Gina, thank you.
Thank you so much for presenting the overview of what has happened yesterday. The idea for today's session is the following. We will have reaction from our experts that I will now introduce, and then later on we will have the overall closing discussion with all of us. So I would like to introduce our experts. We have with us Dr. Laszlo Pinter, who is professor at the Department of Environmental Science and Policy at the Central European University, and he's also senior fellow at the International Institute for Sustainable Development, IISD. And he has been working for nearly 3 decades on the transformation of the way we measure and assess progress with an extended view and balance sheet of well-being, sustainability reporting outlooks and scenarios, among other things, because if we would now dive into all the details, we would need to have a separate session about it, not only for Laszlo, but also for Dr. Cynthia McDougall and Dr. Ara Hobala. And having said that, Dr. Hobala is the Executive Director of SEED, that is a global partnership for action on green economy and sustainable development through green entrepreneurship. He has worked in various organizations for more than 3 decades as well, including EU Switch Asia, Sustainable Consumption and Production Facility, and UNEP. He is expert on sustainable development and specialized in systemic and prospective analysis. And we also have with us Dr. Cynthia McDougall. She's with Stockholm Environment Institute SEI Center Asia since November as a senior research fellow. She leads the Gender, Environment and Development team in Asia and co-leads SEI Global Program on Gender Equality, Social Equity and Poverty. Dr. McDougall is interdisciplinary social scientist with over 2 decades of experience in gender, social equity and inclusion, in natural resource governance and food systems research. So we have excellent team of experts that both reported to the plenary about what has happened in the thematic streams. And now we would like to start the intervention with the round of reactions from our speakers. And I would like to start with Laszlo. What do you think should be our focus for today's session based on what you have just listened now regarding the enables, barriers, and scaling up the decarbonization of food supply chains?
Thank you, Gina, for the generous introduction, and thanks for an excellent session and compiling such a good group of entrepreneurs as well as experts. As I went through and listened to the presentations, of course, the focus was on what enables or hinders circularity, and I couldn't help but also connected that to the fact that in fact the mainstream is still heavily non-circular. In fact, some of the barriers that exist, that are confronted by many of the startups in a competitive setting, is that, and this point was made earlier, is not matching the price point of some of the non-circular competitors. So there's nothing new in this. I mean, we've known this for a long time, both in the microeconomic sense and in the macroeconomic sense. The problem exists across scales. But it's not going to be solved at the level of SMEs. But since some of your speakers spoke to these macro regulatory conditions that are really important for putting SMEs that are trying to operationalize circularity and sustainability in a better competitive position, I think this has to be said. You know, there has to be a parallel sort of enabling of businesses who are doing the good thing, who are enhancing social and natural capital, who are addressing sustainability issues in a very sort of systemic or organic sense in the food sector and others, and at the same time recognize that that's not where the mainstream often is, and how can that be transformed, or how can some of that be discontinued? And I know that that's a difficult question, especially at a time like right now when particularly in the food sector we have extreme price sensitivities, particularly in the developing world. Nevertheless, this is a fundamental issue. So this was one thought I had, and I would say, and I think that should really help the startup that follow the circularity track, is that, I mean, it's unfortunate in many ways, of course, but we are confronted by a convergence of multiple crises. I mean, we've known the climate crisis, of course. We have the food crisis entering a different or new phase. We have security of supply and supply chain issues. So a number of things are converging, and the solutions that we heard about very often are attacking more than one part of this complex matrix of problems. The term multi-solving came to my mind. It has become a little more popular recently, and it basically points out that since we have this complex matrix of problems and in a tight time frame, we have to look for solutions that are multi-solving, that are addressing several of them in combination. So that could be built into the narrative and the technologies and the prospects of many of these SMEs, and that should strengthen the narrative and strengthen the business case, because I think society, both at the policymaker and at the individual level, is becoming more sensitive to these. I have other points, Gina, but I don't know how you want to manage this. I can make 2-3 more points, or you can switch to another commentator.
I think it would be good to do at least 2 rounds. So we have the rounds from the experts, commentators, and then our expert rapporteurs can also pitch in, because that would make it a little bit more interactive. And then thank you for bringing it up, as we are zooming in sometimes into the solutions, and we are focusing on what is happening already on the ground. It is always good to take a step back and see the bigger picture, and always be reminded, maybe not very with a very optimistic picture about the reality we are living in. One could say we are living in the interesting times. I'm not entirely sure this is something I would look forward to a couple of years ago when I started the adventure with sustainable development policy work. But having said that, I would like to pass the floor to Arab to give us his perspective and what he would like us to pay attention to while we are talking about those issues.
Okay, thank you for inviting me. I will have several points that I took from the presentation, the 2 presentations. Unfortunately, I could not follow these sessions before. I just had a terrible agenda preparing for the coalition that I'll be launching soon. First, I think what should emerge and what we need to make clearer is that it makes good economic, environmental, social, and business sense to work with the small and medium enterprises in the agri-food sector. Make it clear, start with the positive message, and highlight, hammering more and more that they are the bottom of the economy. And if we want local resilience in the countries, it is starting with the agri-food systems. Second, we need to have, I know that you have a lot of enablers. I can give more than that from our experience, but it will be good to identify very good practices that could speak to others and from which others can learn about the process, not at the end product, but to learn from the process, how they effectively manage that. In several of the points that were raised, this transition to low carbon diet, focusing on meat demand, is a double-edged one. We have to be very careful about that, because people jump immediately and say, we want to stop meat and we look for alternatives. From my perspective, it's rather better to see how we can focus on the good historical local diets that are not too much meat oriented, that are much more for the grain and cereals, and highlight these are the good practices that our ancestors have been doing that were efficient, in order to show that we did have something consistent, resilient, I mean, would they even circular compared to what we have today, and try to see how we can learn from that to move further. We have to be very careful when we look at the food system, comparing the global one, mainly led by Europe and United States, let us say the global north, with what's happening in the global south, where we have a rising middle class consumers that are simply copying the bad practices of what Europe and United States has been doing, while Europe is now shifting slowly and slowly to something that is more responsible. So it's important to learn from this and see how we can move further on that. You mentioned in the enablers from Luca, the finance and market. We have to be very aware about the difficulties of doing it. If the local structure is not properly organized for that, you have a lot of microcredit that can help, but the system for providing support to local farmers, except in Bangladesh and a couple of countries or India, is not efficient at all. And it's not the normal banking system that will help the small entrepreneurs, farmers for that. It's very clear. You need, let us say, an alternative financing system to support those farmers to be effectively efficient in what they can do, because the normal banking system simply cannot reply to that and cannot work with them. We need alternative systems for that. Then the market, of course, we have to create a demand for their product. We have to see how this can be done. But the process of going from the farm to effectively to the consumer is complex, and it has to be contextualized. Efficiency in the different countries varies, but local farmers are generally very efficient. It just have to see from the good examples how we can learn and move from there. You have referred to the youth, the young generation, and going on the innovation. The problem in Asia that the youth are leaving the farms and going to the big cities. We have to find incentives to see how we can make sure that they can still take care of the farms by effectively providing them incentives to go there and work there, and so that they can do it and not do what they are doing now in Europe. After they have complete desertification of the agriculture system, they are now sending back the young people there, even subsidizing them to go, which we should avoid to have in Asia, because we definitely need this food production. Food waste, food losses, I agree with you, but we need campaigns. And I have not seen a lot about communication, I mean, innovative communication to really make the people aware of the cost of food losses and food waste and what could be a good alternative. I will end up with 3 points. One, we need to not to provide them support, but we need to empower them. I think the wording is extremely important. We need to empower the farmers and the producers and the people in the distribution system, enable them, empower them, to give them the means to effectively do the things. We have learned it from seed by working directly with them, and we have seen the difference in doing the work directly with them. Second, in the terms of recovery, we have seen very well how at the local system, the small and medium entrepreneurs, mainly in working in the agri and natural ecosystem, are the ones who can really secure local resilience, because you go back to the roots and do the thing. This has to be valued more. Last point, you might have said it in the discussion, but I have not heard it here. The role of women is extremely important. if you want to really work on decarbonization, on SMEs, look at the climate issue, resource efficiency, and diets, the role of women is absolutely fundamental. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Arab. And then on this note, also when you mentioned multiple points and that we didn't really look into communication, I think very often when we are discussing solutions and focusing on what is the way forward, people that are involved in making a change are very often so much focused on doing that they do not always take time to also communicate and spread the news. And then I think this is also our role and what we are doing here to make sure that we create waves and reach out to the bigger audience. And also what I was actually asking all the speakers, and it didn't come out so strongly, was also what is the role of gender and especially women empowerment or women leadership that is shaping the dialogue. So then so this is also something that sometimes comes out very strongly, but not always, especially among practitioners, because they are so much focused on doing that. It is challenging to reflect all the things. And having said that, I would like to pass the floor to Cynthia that hopefully will support me also on the points that you mentioned and I just mentioned. Cynthia, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. And congratulations to everyone on a really exciting 2 days. I've listened in with great interest and found every speaker and the questions as well coming from such a place of passion, yet combined with a practical emphasis and a creativity that I think is very rare. So congratulations. And Gina, I'm delighted to respond to this question of a gender lens, and I think it flows really nicely from the previous two commentators. Thinking about enablers and constraints, Laszlo referred to multi-solving, I think, which is great. And you could really hear over today in the course of the 2 days, people have been solving so much around issues that connect to financing and the technologies and the innovative businesses, all the startup related pieces. And so I wanted to take a second in responding to your question to back up to that bigger picture goal again. And I think that there's maybe an unnamed constraint and a potential enabler that connects the dots. We're looking at decarbonization of food supply chains, which is clearly a sustainability issue, and we're not on the right path there yet. From a food systems perspective, we know we're not on the right path. The opening of the Food Systems Summit last year, I remember one of the opening speakers referred to the fact that we're not tinkering, we're transforming, because make no mistake, the system is broken. But the third issue that I think we haven't talked about that's currently a constraint, Dr. Arab pointed to it, it's the social aspect of the system, the equality aspect, and in particular the gender equality aspect. And I think that what we have here is with this passion and creativity and ability to solve problems, there's a tremendous potential to move from this sort of lose, 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 the triple aspect of the system that aren't on track right now, to start to think about that in terms of how can we solve for these things together and turn this into kind of a win-win-win around sustainability, food systems, and equality, in particular gender equality I'll refer to today. And just super quickly, so in terms of why, if folks haven't thought about it before, we just heard women's empowerment is enormously important, and that's true. There are dimensions of women's empowerment that have been well documented at the practical level in terms of food production. If women had equal access, if women had equal access to, say, information, land, technologies, the FAO anticipated that would increase production by 20 to 30%. We've seen through the IFC estimates of what gender balance does for companies at the level of businesses and the tremendous returns in terms of profits and sustainability of businesses. Overall growth, when women are empowered, we see GDP increase, we see growth from local to national levels. And so there's all of these dimensions that on paper, we should understand that we need to connect these dots, but I don't think we have yet. We know even before the pandemic, gender equality was very poor across the entire food system, from production through to value chains, where there was women lacking access to information, financing, technologies, services, right through to being consistently in more informal, low return roles in the value chain. The pandemic has made things worse. We're now further away from gender equality by about a whole generation than we were before the pandemic. And that's not a fluke, that's because of the underlying structural failures in the system. And some of these structural failures are similar to what people have suggested around the carbon issues and the food system issues and sustainability. We're not thinking big picture. We're not thinking in terms of long time frames, that kind of thing. So what I wanted to suggest then was, if we were to add these three parts together, and the equation that people ran in the day-to-day, but also big picture was around how can we work on all three at the same time to shift from that lose-lose-lose to a win-win-win. One thing that I wanted to raise as a practical issue is as startups and SMEs are starting to make decisions, they can just bring to the fore the notion that there is no level playing field, that there is no neutral, just as same as in sustainability. If we use a plastic bag because that's what we've always done, it doesn't mean that there's no effect. If we continue to act as if gender inequality isn't a problem, it doesn't mean that it isn't a problem. In fact, advancing in technology, innovation, and services, but not taking into account that women face greater barriers is more likely to increase the gender gap than to actually close the gender gap. So just a closing thought then is, well, this incredibly dynamic group of folks is looking at thriving and changing systems and changing ecosystems, I think there's an enormous value in starting to look at the social together with the food system and decarbonizing and sustainability aspects, whether it's inside the startups, whether it's in the reaching out through the partnerships, collaborations, networks, associations, and platforms that people refer to, and whether it's in solving our own STEM problems here and backing that issue all the way up to the bigger picture issues of why girls have been dropping out of school as a result of the pandemic. And what can this group do to stop those failures way back at the start, sort of expand the horizons of how we think, connect the dots. And I think that that we'll find these issues become mutual enablers instead of mutual constraints. So let me stop there and I'll hand back to you, Gina.
Thank you so much, Cynthia, for inserting hidden truths or undiscovered truths. I think we very often move on with business as usual, not because it is some kind of strategic planning that was set up in place. It is just more unconsciously following the common paths and moving on as before. Without self-reflecting, so always having a step back and having a dialogue about things to remind ourselves what is crucial and sometimes hidden below the water when we are looking at the top of the iceberg. Using the Titanic metaphor that can be also applied, I think, in this discussion. If I could have now some reaction from Luca and Ami when you have been listening to this, and also you were involved in the streams, what is something that you would like to share with all of us based on the discussion so far?
I can go ahead, Luca, if that's okay with you. I'd like to, I think, touch on or respond to 2 points that our experts here shared earlier. So one, of course, is on communications. When Dr. Arab mentioned about, of course, innovative communications, it reminded me of one of my favorite quotes, actually. It says that there are 2 ways of spreading light, to be the candle or the mirror that reflects it. So we as a partnership platform, that's actually what we try to do. We know we are able to identify and meet a lot of partners and leaders in the network who are implementing best practices in not only climate smart agriculture, sustainable agriculture, gender mainstreaming, women economic empowerment, among others. And as a platform, that's what we do. We reflect, we make the voice louder, we make it clearer so that we can share these best practices to a wider network, not only in the Philippines, but also as part of the Grow with Asia network in other countries. So that's why Dr. Cynthia also mentioned this. we look at multi-stakeholder partnerships, learning and knowledge activities, and also policy environment, so that we can support policy enhancements from the dialogues that we, and also the insights that we get from our partners. Next, I also agree with promoting, of course, gender mainstreaming and women economic empowerment. So in the good thing, I think, within our network and in our partners in Croatia, a lot of our partners and members are already more aware of the need to like provide more value to the role of women, basically role of men and women farmers in promoting sustainable agriculture. So as a matter of fact, we are revisiting, and we just launched a new strategic refresh, like a strategy refresh, wherein one of the main pillars that we are working on to pursue more aggressive work and active work is on women economic empowerment. And ongoing research are already being, research products and activities are already being put together or being done, so that we can further study or deeply study gender in climate smart agriculture. And once when we're done with that, the technical reports will be translated into engagement activities, stakeholder management initiatives that will engage policymakers and also private and public sector players around these streams. So I think it's if I may say, it's exciting days ahead, because although of course Gina mentioned that we cannot say that for sure, but there are a lot of engagements already ongoing, and at least in our network, our partners are more and more aware and more committed to collaborate and engage in various collaboration or partnership platforms.
Thank you so much, Ami, for this enthusiastic sharing of the practices that are already happening. I think it definitely brightens the picture. And having said that, I would like to pass the floor to Luca.
Thank you, Gina. I was very happy that Arab brought in the emphasis on local dimension and traditional practices. I think this is really a very important point. It's even part of a broader discourse, I think, which is about reconnecting food production and consumption with nature and the environment. You know, now consumers are always more and more disconnected from, you know, everything that happens before getting their food products or whatever, their watermelon or the potato in the supermarket. So we need to have a reconnect, and SMEs can play an important role there, in particular because they tend to be more connected with the local territories than, for example, large corporations. And I'm talking not just about agriculture SMEs, but also SMEs that you know, deliver food or deliver services along the agri-food systems. SMEs that also work with education, for example, or SMEs that integrate consumer data into production systems. So I think that, you know, if we create a culture where business is kind of oriented more towards contributing to the general well-being of population instead of just maximizing profit, then you know, decarbonization would be possible. And along the same line, I think what we need to emphasize is, you know, not just the urgency of decarbonization of the agri-food system, but also all of the co-benefits that we bring about besides saving the planet or make the planet habitable, if that is not enough. So we could, you know, put more emphasis on what are the health benefits of low carbon diets, what are the societal benefits. We talked about women empowerment. So these, of course, have a lot of societal benefits that are connected with the essential role that women have throughout society. So yeah, like a reconnection of decarbonization with also all of the other co-benefits that that changing food system will bring about. I think that's also important.
Thank you so much, Luca. Thank you so much, everybody. As luck would have it, we always, when we plan those panels, we think that there will be enough time, and then we have excellent points and the time is running out. So having said that, I just would like to make the executive decision and authorize 1 minute for each speaker to conclude our discussion. So if we can get one more round, what would be your key message based on the exchange we just have? And regarding the topic of the conference, which is about SMEs going circular, because we touch upon so many things, starting from like historical lifestyle that is now also being touched upon, and I think in couple of different intervention and different settings. There is also the issue that didn't come out here so strongly, which is related with indigenous people, and then having the respect for nature and connecting and reconnecting and cherish our connection, not just with the economic values, but also with the environment and social systems. So this would be something that is always very close to my heart, but if I can get from you like up to 1 minute, the main message with what you would like to leave our audience based on your years of experience and work in the field, that would be fantastic. So if we can start with Laszlo, that would be great.
Yes. First, I just want to really second Arap's point that both Lutz and Cynthia reiterated about the importance of locally contextualized traditional knowledge systems, how to incorporate those into solutions that are presented as innovative and forward-looking. That's one point. And if I have 30 seconds, my other point is about the need for looking for evidence. It's not enough to use just nice words. We actually have to have a very clear sense of impact, and you can do that at the very local level. Of course, you can do. We don't have basically to basically put forward solutions that work in rhetoric only, but that actually don't make a difference on the ground. I think linking to evidence is my key message here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Dear Arap, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. I will take the 2 seconds that Laszlo left for me. First, evidence on evidence. As I said, you are too many SMEs. You cannot cover them all. So I have a sentence that I use very much, which people start to understand now, is value the few best to move the rest. Basically, identify good practices, good lessons, share the process, not the result, in order to induce the many others to follow, and then communicate about. This is extremely important. Second message, keep again in mind what was the campaign about 12 years ago. I was one of the actors in it, between UNEP and FAO. Think, eat, save. And this applies perfectly to the agri-food system. Think, eat, save. Last point, what we need to do and not take it for granted, because the small agriculture and local agriculture has been here forever. We need to bring them from the edge to the center of the discourse of sustainability. The policymakers and the big markets should not take it for granted they are here. No, they have to be associated, enabled, empowered to play properly the role. And final point, in the work we do in SEED, 58% of the innovation are done by women-led enterprise.
Thank you so much, Arap. Can we now get similar input from Cynthia, which means up to 1 minute, and what is your key message?
Thank you. So echoing first what folks have underscored about empowerment, local and nature-based approaches as a foundation. I won't go into that, but my 1 minute point would be to underscore again that a technical financial business approach to decarbonizing food supply chains will advance somewhat if it's isolated that way, but it would advance slowly, and it won't go as far as we want, and the causal chain doesn't go from there, and then we would achieve equality or social equity and the social outcomes we want. You flip it around and say, okay, but would women's empowerment and gender equality, social equity, and investments in social systems and in people, so connecting here again to local empowering approaches, would that drive decarbonization? And it will. If we bring these two things together, so they're not sequential but working together, I think we'll get further, and we will we'll get there faster, and we'll go further on that. And so I would just wrap up by saying, again, it's been so inspiring, and so I hope that everyone can come away from this feeling like they can see the momentum, they're ready to keep going, and ready to start pushing on all fronts together to try to move the needle. And let me stop there.
Thank you so much, everybody. I will just quickly check if Ami and Luca would like to add something.
Okay, okay, I can have a quick one. I was struck by a statement yesterday in Stream 2, and they said that collaboration is as important as the solution. So I think I'm gonna end with that. And with that collaboration, I hope we engage the farming communities in all throughout the process.
Thank you so much. Luca?
Not much to add. I just wish to thank all of the experts for the great inputs, and yeah, let's take all of this and bring it forward.
Thank you for stealing my thunder. So thank you, everybody, and we are looking forward to the proceedings of this event, and hopefully we will engage further, and the collaboration will become the solution among many other brilliant ideas that came out from this meeting. Thank you so much, everybody. Good evening. We are welcoming you to the final plenary session that will be looking into facing global challenges for SMEs in the decarbonization journey. And we have prepared for you the concluding panel that will be consisting of 3 excellent speakers that will share with you the food for thought, as the luck would have it, given the overall thematic area of our conference. And having said that, I would like to introduce our first speaker. It will be Florian Beranek. He's a lead senior expert on responsible business development with UNIDO. His projects in Asia are focusing on several industrial sectors, such as textile, and he possesses wide experience in stakeholder management, communication and reporting, supply chain compliance, and many other programs, including circular economy, and looking into collaboration among different stakeholders. And this session is nicely intertwined with the overall topic of the conference, and I am looking forward to what will happen at this concluding panel. And Florian, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you very much, Gina. And thank you also for organizing this really, really important event at the right time. Actually, for food, it's always the right time because we always want to eat something. So let me welcome you all, ladies and gentlemen, and a good early afternoon here in Southeast Asia, and a good afternoon to all of you joining us from Africa, Europe, or from other parts of the globe. As said, my name is Florian Beranek. I'm living actually in Hanoi, and as a real Austrian, I'm passionate for food, you know, actually for clean, safe, healthy, and tasty, fresh things on my table. But there's a catch, you know. Austrian food is great, but maybe not always something you would call light. We love, you know, we love butter, cream, sugar, meats, all this good but not so smart stuff. As a result, I was looking like that here. This was 1.5 years ago. Today I have roughly 40 kilograms less, thanks to the change of lifestyle, change of food, and changing also my perspective on what I eat, where it comes from, how it was made. So believe me now, when it comes to good, healthy, and sustainable eating, I really know what I'm talking about. So let's now dig into the topic a little bit, the decarbonization of food supply systems. And that carbon attached to our food is also something fat and heavy. Long time it seemed, however, that one can't change this large carbon footprint. Like me, I never thought I can lose 40 kilograms. But guess what? As it was possible for me, it's also possible for the carbon footback on our food. So let's look where this heavy weight is actually coming from. Is it coming really from the food, or is it coming from other areas? Oops, no, we have one short issue. Here we are. Is it coming from the farming? Is it coming from transport, from packaging, from the processing, from the cooling, from the agrochemicals, from the feedstock, from the land use, from the marketing? You see here, so many different areas where our food and food supply is causing heavy, heavy contributions to greenhouse gases. If I look sometimes here in supermarkets, and you know, we have a suspect. What is one of the main reasons why food has such a heavy backpack on carbon? It's transport. Then buying the tiny, tiny chocolate with 5 different layers of packaging. Also the use of agrochemicals, of fertilizers, and so on. And not forget the marketing around globally sold and advertised products is causing significant contributions to this carbon footprint. But looking at those areas and how much each segment contributes in average to the final product on our table is showing us also what? Who is on the driver's seat actually here? Are these the SMEs, or are these the big players, so big food, so to say? So one might say that SMEs can't do anything about it, right? As long as they are just in a common supply chain, that's probably true. Just a tiny wheel in global food machinery. But there are also great opportunities to cut down on transport, on packaging, on agrochemicals by just going more, and we heard it over the past 2 days, going local and regional. That's actually a main area for the SMEs. And I cannot emphasize enough how this is appealing and finally will definitely help to overcome these bottlenecks or these overweight carbon footprints produced by the globalized food markets. So finally, what to do? Are there some opportunities to break out, to make other choices, to become more innovative, creative, and successful? Yes. And that approach and the methodologies described by circular economy, and in particular circular bioeconomy, offers exactly the right starting point to make that difference. That's why it was very important to choose for our conference the combination of the decarbonization and the circular economy. Because alongside the circular economy modeling, we look into several stages. You know, we look at the design, at the materials, at the processes, at the usage, distribution, at the waste, which is unavoidable partly, but also into recycling and to reuse. We use these systems to design products which can be really circular. It's not about a little bit the green element here and a little bit the recycling element there. It's really about how to rethink our food. Because food, never forget, food is something different. Food cannot be compared to any other product we are buying and selling every day. Food is not the commodity. Food is at the end a human right. We should never forget that. So you see, if you now switch on and if you reflect now our past 2 days, all these great ideas, there are plenty of opportunities for SMEs. And most of them are always linked to the local, the regional, and the cultural assets. And the values will be through that less shared amongst a lot of intermediates. The purchase power finally will all run into a circular alongside the program, alongside the products. And it is inclusive and in the best position to overcome behavioral biases through trust, because you buy from somebody you know, so you trust. So SMEs are just great and all love them finally. And as so often in the field, and we just heard it in the recent panel again, women are the key drivers. And we have not only to acknowledge that, we have to encourage, to boost and support this. And by the way, I got here a nice example, just picked from our fridge today. You see, I have to show it a little bit closer. This is chili and garlic in a sour brine in a glass container. And it's amazing good. And we buy it since years from the same woman at the wet market just around the corner here. And, you know, if you're not asking for a plastic bag and you're buying it and with this reusable glass, which is sold before, then she doesn't give you a discount. This would be just cheap to do. She's doing it better. She always gives those who use the glass a fresh banana or another piece of fresh, tasty fruit for our little son. You know, that's sustainable and that's real customer care. That's personal relationship. That's what food is all about. It's nice, it's personal. Eventually, this all sounds so easy and quick to fix. If you listen to all of us over the past 2 days, you think, wow, this now we just do that and it will work. But why doesn't it work? Food markets are at the end a shark tank, mainly because food became a commodity. It is treated, unfortunately, partly or parts of the food supply chain like any other market. The daily fight for survival is tough and rude. So SMEs and the fundamentally critical model of local and regional approaches requires a supporting and a visionary legal and regulatory framework. Voluntary systems and campaigns by this to that are helpful, but finally it needs the strong legal structure. And it needs to do that also public officials with the spirit of the change in the sake of their own children and future generations. So what really is key? And I just put here some together which I consider they are important. Consumer rights enforced. And consumer rights doesn't mean a little bit consumer protection. No, it means consumers with the legal weapons and arms in hand to defend themselves. In case of, in our case, bad food, wrong information, misleading information. This comes together with the need on a law on competition, which ends with the power of sometimes big players or some players on the online market, in particular when it comes to health claims, nutritional facts, information, and finally permanently using the threat of suing smaller ones under intellectual property rights regulations. To keep the market also on a level in terms of food safety and quality, quality infrastructure has to become accessible. Quality infrastructure means labs, testing, metrology, calibration, and all these things have to be open and affordable also for the small ones so that they can follow and fulfill all these requirements. And on top of that, the process to develop standards has to be transparent. If standardization becomes a pay and play show, the SMEs will be left behind again. So this has to be avoided. So SMEs have to be on the table and have to have a voice also in the standardization process and also in ongoing developments in food safety regulations. On top of that, it would be great to have some tax incentives or similar incentives, financial and fiscal benefits, to avoid prohibitive prices for the small producers for local products, so that they are able to compete with the big players. And finally, one area which is often a little bit overlooked, I think, this is food safety properly applied and enforced to trigger investment. What do I mean with that? You probably are aware that in a lot of countries, we have an issue with the lack of cold chain. Cold storage, I'm not even talking about frozen storage, just chilled one, 3-5 degrees or whatever. The storage and the transport, all these chains which are critically important for food safety, but also for market access for smaller ones, a little bit more on distance. This requires high investments, really, really high investments. But like the case in Vietnam, nobody wants to invest as long as the usage of such systems is not required and enforced by law. We just had recently a discussion with big retailers. They said, we would need more cold chain, but they don't want to invest. And this is a real, real issue. And I hope that what applies also to other services like slaughterhouses or produce exchange centers can be triggered by enforced food safety regulations. The same applies also to the respective vocational trainings. They should not be in the hands of some NGOs. This has to be done really on a legal basis. And these are actually all areas where UNIDO is successfully working and will even expand its activities in future, led by our new Director General, Dr. Gerd Müller, who was actually speaking at last year's edition of this forum as well. So by local and by healthy campaigns, including protection, like geographical indication, branding, etc. This also includes the integration into tourism. That's another big opportunity for the local and regional producers. But always keep in mind, do not start to create tourist food. This I see sometimes. It's horrifying that they create some food which is not local, not from there, just to sell it to tourists. Don't do this, please.
Thank you, Florian, for your passionate introduction.
Okay.
I would like to stop here for now. We will still get back to you. Okay. Just I would like to give the floor to our two excellent other speakers, so we can have a bit of a variety of opinions. And thank you so much for bringing so many points that that have been discussed already during the forum, and also new points. I think so far we haven't really looked into tourist-related food consumption, and this is definitely something that at some point should be addressed as well. And having said that, I would like to warmly welcome Zinaida Fadiva. She is the team leader of the Sustainable Consumption and Production Facility of the Switch Asia program. She has over 25 years experience in policy and practice of sustainable consumption and production and education for sustainable development. Please, Zinaida, the floor is yours.
A big thanks, and hello to Florian as well. Florian might have lost a lot of weight, but certainly not his humor and passion and wisdom and vigor and analysis. So greetings to all of the colleagues and congratulations to the near conclusion of this rich today's discussions. And as a final session, we of course have a bit of an obligation to reflect on some of the statements and common wisdom and reflections which were shared during these 2 days. And many interventions have confirmed that we are having a common understanding of a triple planetary crisis, which is concerned with the climate change, degradation of ecosystems, and unprecedented generation of waste that leaks into different media. These 3 elements are closely linked to each other, and all of them are related to the overconsumption and linear use of resources. So many of us see the cardinal sins of the linear economy, and its severe reductionism, its extreme specialization, and in the absence of system approach. And system probably is the most frequently used word, at least in the sessions which I had the privilege to observe. This event brings many elements that impact the food system in a more systemic fashion. And what is important from our perspective of Switch Asia, it brings together questions of materials and climate. And the celebrated research of the International Resource Panel, which most probably has been mentioned on multiple occasions, have shown that extraction and processing of natural resources is responsible for 90% of biodiversity loss and to the generation of 50% of greenhouse gas emissions. This understanding did exist for a long time, we know that, but not necessarily have been fully operationalized in different regions, including in Europe. So it has been perhaps most consistently promoted through the concept of sustainable consumption and production that paid attention to the activities along the whole supply chain and focused greatly on the design of products and services, prioritization of renewables, and looked at all materials, not only in our case food, but also on water and energy, and some accompanying, so to speak, materials. Recently, and with the emergence of the concept of circular economy, we see examples of more coherent and integrated approach to both climate and material use issues in different levels of policy. And having established the importance of resources for the discussions of climate, let me just bring us to the question of implementation of some of the practices of circular economy and climate in reality, with reference to the activities of Switch Asia, a program which I do represent today. So I'm, as Gina said, team leader for the Switch Asia SCP facility. Switch Asia is a program that has been created by European Union with a logic of upscaling the SCP practices in Asia, and where excellent examples related to resource efficiency in different sectors have been already manifesting its results. So we spoke about attention to the resources across the whole supply chain, return to materials into the production consumption system, switch to less harmful alternatives in the material use. So all of this has been, of course, there. And before operation of Switch Asia in 2007, when the program began, of course, a lot of innovations has been there, yeah, but massive uptake of these practices has been an entirely different story. So what Switch Asia has been doing really is provide a system that would help to uptake at the much more massive scale all this innovation, so to speak. So how it's being done. The program has two components that reflect very important enabling mechanism for such required transformation towards less carbon intensive and less material intensive production and consumption system. So those were components of grants that innovate with SCP practices on the ground, and we have been working with about 150 grants throughout the 15 years with investment of 300 million into those components, and this policy component that draws from the experiences of those grants on the ground, and at the same time create enabling conditions for supporting activities this grants produce. So it's two-level system, creating enabling conditions, but drawing on the actual practices. Significant number of projects that are supported by Switch Asia are focused on sustainability of food systems. So today we completed 18 of those projects, and in the coming installation, it's half a dozen new ones about to start from this year onwards. What is really interesting is that the projects are explicitly targeting climate goals nowadays together with SCP ones, and that they keep broader perspective of upscaling good practices through facilitating access to markets and to finance. So this is something which is repeated throughout the discussion during these 2 days. And they are also, these grants, facilitating active input into the policies in the countries. So we see that current practices in the area of food systems are much more systemic than it has been a few years ago. Let me bring you to your attention a few examples which might illustrate not only those approaches, but also trigger your attention to and to visit the website of Switch Asia, where these practices are very much presented. So Super V Coffee Project in Lao PDR is a new project which is translated as Sustainable Production and Ethic Responsible and Women Empowered Coffee Value Chain. Women Empowered, while gender aspect is there. It is a very new project and thus probably reflects best the systemic nature of emerging sustainability approaches. Systemic. The project action promote the adoption of more resource-efficient processes by coffee producers in MSMEs. This is their focus on circular. There is a focus on circular approaches at the level of enterprises. There for sure. At the same time, their strategies for upscaling right away connections to the markets through supply chains that privilege green and just producers. So its connection to the market is being built right from the start. The project puts a focus on those practices and technologies that can be technologically feasible in the local conditions, and therefore sustainability aspect of operations is of course there. And these enabling factors are here, as mentioned, to access green markets and financial instruments. In short, the project is at its core action starts at the stage of primary producers, but it is acting across the whole ecosystem of circular economy and practices at the level of SMEs, and also connects to enablers, education, finance, and access to market. Let me just bring one more example for the reason that a lot of colleagues, and Florian also lately mentioned the whole idea of the cold chains and their importance. Now, the example is called EECHO project, which is standing for Towards Energy Efficiency and Agri-Food Cold Chains Logistics in China. And the project aims at reducing energy consumption and greenhouse gas emissions of the agri-food cold chains logistics in 3 different regions of China. The focus is on the logistics service providers, but also on agri-food SMEs which have in-house logistics. The goal of that is to develop a business model for energy efficiency where MSMEs have access to different tools to increase the environmental performance of logistical operations. And it has actually 3 components, very briefly going through that. It enables MSMEs to measure and understand the energy consumption and carbon footprint of their operations through internationally recognized standards. Calculator is internationally recognized, and also there is a toolkit for energy efficiency for and now pay attention, for fleet management, fleet configuration, for logistical optimization, and for efficient driving as well. Second element is access to finance through capacity building for public authorities and financial institutions, so that the banks, etc., are involved. And the third element, thank you. And the third element is certification to demonstrate the commitment to adoption of low carbon practices. To summarize, and let me finish here with a short reflection that supported of Switch Asia experiences and experience of many partners participating in this 2 days event. We are increasingly practicing more systemic actions, connecting different policies, as well as planning actions that have perspectives of the entire supply chain and addressing challenges in different domains. And certainly connection with social aspects, which was picked up by the colleagues in the previous session, is not an aspect of policy and practice to be neglected. Thank you, Gina. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Zinaida, for bringing those examples. When we have been discussing enablers and what is the future and what is required to scale up, definitely the role of funding and support from different stakeholders as a part of enabling ecosystem for SMEs to go circular was strongly underlined, and Switch Asia is doing an excellent job in making sure this happen. Having said that, I would like to introduce Tara Shiam. She's the Associate Director of the Global Food Banking Network. She's involved in multinational companies' sustainable supply chain targets by supporting the redirection of safe surplus food and non-food essentials to food banks serving communities in need. Ms. Shiam is also leading GFN multi-year nutrition strategic planning exercise, ensuring access to diverse, culturally appropriate and nutritious food for all. Dear Tara, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Gina, and thank you for whoever's powering the slide. We can skip forward because we've just done my introduction. Thank you. So the work that my organization does, and what I'll be doing is to speak briefly about the work that we do and bring that up to the context of today and yesterday's discussions. So there are two sets of concurrent tragedies that our work addresses. First here, as you see in the slide, is the tragedy of hunger. Now the slide says today, but it was actually prepared late last year using research that was published in 2021. Looking at the increase since pre and post COVID, or at that time we thought it was post COVID, and there was already an increase in hunger figures globally. And the current geopolitical situation that we're in related to food supply chain challenges means that these figures are increasing. So that's the first tragedy there. Slide, please. I'm not going to go into detail on this slide, but just to highlight, because this particular piece around the UN Global Crisis Response Group has been mentioned over the last couple of days, that my organization GFN reports, we are part of the group that reports in regularly to this reportage, and we glean our information from the food banks across our network, who are seeing how higher food prices and fuel prices are impacting the people at a community level. So small diversion there, but we can go to the next slide. I mentioned that there are two tragedies, and the second tragedy, so concurrent to the tragedy of hunger, is the tragedy of food loss and waste. And so we're looking at figures which I know have been brought up in the course of the last 2 days, but around a third of all the food that we are producing is lost or wasted somewhere along the supply chain. And that's an area of the size of China. It takes an area the size of China to produce the quantity of food that we're losing or wasting each year. That's over $1 trillion worth of food that's wasted. If food waste were a country, it would be the third biggest GHG emitter after the US and China. And for perspective, this 10% figure that you see that food waste contributes to in terms of GHGs, that's nearly 5 times as much as the aviation sector. So really some food for thought right there. Slide, please. I mentioned food loss and waste, and just very quickly there, that distinction I wanted to make and just clarify: food loss being everything that happens from farm all the way up to and before retail, and then food waste from retail right to our dinner plates tonight. Slide, please. So GFN, the Global Food Banking Network, slide again. We work across 44 countries and nearly 50 food banks. We are, if you look at the image in front of you, the countries covered in green. We have partner organizations in the USA. And for those of you tuning in from Europe, you'll be familiar with the European Food Banks Federation working across the EU. So there are partner organizations, but GFN alone in 2020 reached 40 million, our network reached 40 million people globally, more than half of whom are actually here in the Asia Pacific region. Slide, please. So what do? We support with coaching, training, capacity development. We invest in equipment. We invest through an incubator program for food banks. We support training around safe handling of food products, and we are a grant maker, so we provide strategic grants to accelerate development. Slide. What is a food bank? Many people just think of a food bank as an organization that distributes food, but in reality, a food bank is rather more complex than that. This picture tries to simplify a rather complex setup. But the main premise of a food bank is really collecting, the primary model of a food bank is collecting and redistributing surplus from across the supply chain. So a food bank aggregates that surplus anywhere from farm to fork, depending on their model. They collect and redistribute it through community service organizations who then reach people that are facing hunger. Slide, please. So what do product donations? So my team at GFN works with companies, as Gina mentioned in my intro, works with companies to identify, to understand their supply chain, identify where surplus is happening, and build in food banking as a partnership, as a partner through that supply chain. Why do companies even want to talk about this? Because there are benefits to them. And when I say companies, I mean SME to large companies. The first is around cost reductions. Food banks can help to reduce some prices and costs and inefficiencies around the movement or disposal of surplus. There, in some countries, are financial benefits as well. So some donations may have tax benefits for a company. There's an environmental impact, and I'll get back to that in the next slide. And finally, GFN offers a single point of contact at the global and regional level for such companies, supporting food banks at the country level for those partnerships. Slide, please. So I mentioned in the environmental impact, we did a study, GFN, alongside Feeding America and FEBA back in 2019, and we found that 12.39 billion kilograms of greenhouse gas emissions were mitigated by food banks using that model of surplus collection across the supply chain and redistribution. And there's some equivalents there illustrating what those mitigated GHG emissions could mean otherwise. Slide, please. So I've put here the EC's version of the food recovery hierarchy. There are many versions, but they all basically tell you the same thing. The first point of contact, the first kind of port of call is preventing food loss and waste. And we all agree that prevention really should be the first step we're taking. The next one down in terms of preferable options is looking at reusing that product or redirecting it where it is safe for consumption to those who need that product more. So redistributing that safely and freely to people who are facing hunger and other types of vulnerability. Further down the hierarchy, you'll see other things like using it for animal feed, recycling, nutrient recovery, energy recovery, and finally, really the smallest wedge of that triangle is actually disposing it or sending to landfill. Next slide, please. So how do SMEs engage? And the three quick areas I want to cover here around research, partnerships, and policies. Slide, please. GFN commissioned research. In fact, it's still ongoing now in the second year with Mintel, which is a market intelligence firm. A study that looks at B2B respondents in food manufacturing, handling, distribution, and retail. So that includes SMEs across the entire supply chain, as well as larger companies. In Asia Pacific, we looked particularly across the countries that are listed there, and nearly 400 interviews were conducted to understand where that surplus is happening, what the reasons are, and what some of the solutions are. So slide, please. Now, a lot of text on this next slide. I'm going to focus on what's in the purple box because that crystallizes some of the findings. On the right, it's really a sector by sector breakdown of what some of the key drivers of that loss and waste are. Among the key findings, just under a third reported that they felt that there was loss or waste happening at their point in the supply chain. A devastating 72% said that food was discarded. And if we recall my earlier slide, around 10% of GHG emissions being due to food loss and waste, this 72% figure that I'm talking about in Asia Pacific alone just cannot be ignored. A couple of other things we found from this research. There aren't a lot of programs around food donation that they reported, but there is a lot of interest. There are sector-specific drivers for why this loss and waste is happening, but if you aggregate it all, the key ones are around overproduction, so producing more than was actually needed further downstream. Other issues that have been mentioned earlier around machinery, transportation, and expiration dates as well. Just under half said they increased production, so overproduction due to the pandemic, and a sort of a mismatch of demand and supply understandings and projections. And finally, almost all companies reported, or many food companies reported that they would donate more if logistics were easier to manage. And my co-panelists have talked a bit about logistics already. Here we position food banks as being, again, that partner in the supply chain that can support around the movement of that product efficiently and safely. Slide, please. The second area I wanted to highlight was around partnerships. And I was thinking about how SMEs can sometimes struggle to create that critical mass individually because of the size. And so one area I think is really exciting where SMEs can get involved in is around voluntary agreements. And these are agreements, voluntary agreements for reducing food loss and waste. These are agreements that have the private sector, public sector, NGOs, and other stakeholders all sit at the table together and understand where surplus is happening, why waste and loss is happening, and the environmental impact as a result. So globally, there are many examples in Europe. There are fewer in Asia, but growing. And GFN and our member food banks, in partnership with an organization based in the UK called RAP, are participating in, leading on, or supporting knowledge sharing around such voluntary agreements in the UK, Australia, Indonesia, South Africa, and Mexico. To the right of this slide, I have a little case study. We don't have time to go into that right now, but you can just remember the name Pacto por la Comida, because that is a great case study of such a voluntary agreement that's led by the Bancos de Alimentos in Mexico, Mexico. And obviously the network there in Mexico, and it's a great example of how multiple companies and other stakeholders have come together to not just analyze their supply chains, but really figure out clever ways to redirect that product. And what's really interesting about voluntary agreements is that it's a pre-competitive space. So companies are able to openly discuss the challenges and opportunities that they face across the entire supply chain and not just in one sector. And they explore collaboration. Slide, please. Last one that I wanted to highlight was around laws and policies. So I think it's interesting and very valuable for SMEs to think about and understand the context in terms of legal and policy environments that they sit in the countries where they operate. And GFN has been working with the Harvard Food Law and Policy Clinic for some time now to understand some of the barriers and incentives that exist in various countries when it comes to food recovery efforts and food donation efforts. So we've got several summaries and you can have a look there. What's not included here is the EU platform on food losses and food waste, but obviously relevant to much of the audience today and yesterday. They're in their second or third mandate, I think, up to 2026, part of the Farm to Fork strategy. And the EU has provided food donation guidelines to facilitate recovery, has key recommendations and actions for food waste prevention, and really encourages public-private collaboration, which comes back to my earlier slide around voluntary agreements, as well as previous sessions that have talked so much about the importance of partnerships. So that's just my last slide there, just to close off. Thanks for the opportunity and the invitation to talk about this, and looking forward to your questions.
Thank you so much, Sarah. If we can now invite everybody together. We have one question specifically about, can we also have, yes, thank you. I just would like to have a concluding session, like if we are about to conclude this conference and we have traveled through so many topics and so many issues, what would be from you the main message regarding what is needed to ensure SMEs smooth transition and decarbonization towards circular economy, like wrapping up all the buzzwords together. But in the pragmatic, very pragmatic step, what do you think is like the most important strategy that we should focus on, also as Asia Europe Foundation and the organization that is supporting collaboration and networking and providing solutions and connecting people? So what do you think should be the way, and like one concluding thing? And if you can try to wrap it up within 1 minute, that would be also fantastic. Thank you so much. And I would like to pass the floor to Florian.
So, but now I'm here. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Gina. My message is a very short and definitely pragmatic one. I see the key is, beside all the volunteer actions, beside all these beautiful models, it requires policy, law, and enforcement. SMEs can't survive in this market without governments and global enforcement community to support them. This is absolutely required. Everything else will, in my opinion, dramatically fail. The same applies also to food safety, to market, to consumer rights, to competition law, all the things I mentioned. I think that's important. After that, it will thrive, because then people are not permanently up here. Then they can do what really food makes food so nice. Food is a happy thing. People come together to laugh, to have party together, to eat, and not to cry and to have tears in their eyes. And that's what we should bring back to food. It's allegria. That's just a nice, beautiful Italian word for that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Florian. Can I ask the same from Zinaida, if you can share your key message with us?
Yeah, well, it would be slightly shorter, though I fully agree with Florian on this. The challenge of food security, in my view, is surely with us now, and it has been ringing across the 2 days, more or less openly. And it is accelerated by ongoing war, by lingering consequences of pandemic, COVID pandemic, and by climate change related disasters, of course. We can talk about different perspectives here, short-term and long-term, and let me bring a couple of points here, which appear quite important, and all of them are related to questions of resilience, which again has been mentioned over and over. The first is the resilience of SMEs themselves. Resilience of SMEs constituted ability to run quality operations and to be entrepreneurial as the minimum, adaptive, innovative, etc. It means that whole working with SMEs on questions of environment would also mean working on their basic resilience, which and this is a absolute minimum requirements, because remember, in Asia we have quite a lot of SMEs which are extremely vulnerable because they're simply informal. The second small sub-point is our current dependence on particular foods that makes us more or less vulnerable. Well, mentioned meat, but also if the food systems depends, for example, on 4 or 5 main grains, and if supply of these grains, what is currently happening, is suddenly interrupted, clearly we have to do something with increasing resilience and flexibility of our supply chain and our food system. Thank you, Gina.
Thank you so much, Zinaida. And I would like to pass the floor to Tara now.
Thanks, Gina. Actually, I think I answered your question preemptively in my slides. I think for me, the 3 key areas that SMEs need to think about, I use the word research, but we can broaden that to say evidence, because there is a lot of evidence out there, including what I presented, to show where that surplus is happening, where it's happening, and what some of the reasons are around that. So I think SMEs familiarizing themselves with their own markets and their own country context and what's happening there around surplus. The second is around partnerships. And I said in my slides, in my presentation, that finding that critical mass can be really challenging for SMEs. So really getting together and being part of these broader conversations with other partners and really having a seat at the table in conversations about surplus and surplus recovery and where those challenges lie are really critical. And then third, and Florian, it takes it back to one of Florian's points around policies and laws. And that's not something that SMEs can necessarily push the needle on themselves. But really, again, familiarizing and supporting discussions and working with partners and evidence. So linking everything back together again to define what those policies should look like, because they don't necessarily reflect the best and most efficient ways to manage food surplus, food recovery, and donations specifically. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody. I would like to really thank you from the depth of my heart for preparing and contributing to this event. We have just concluded our 2-day event. and then we will be looking into the other topics soon, also this year and for the future event. And then thank you, Florian, for always providing entertainment to all of us, no matter if it is the meeting in person or online. And coming back more seriously to our topic, the plans of Asia Europe Foundation for the next couple of months is to continue working on this topic, looking at what we can do in our small scale, and hopefully with the growing network of people and organizations that are excited about the topic, to move the needle. As you mentioned before, the SMEs cannot do it alone, but I also think governments cannot do it alone, and then farmers cannot do it alone. The only way we can move it forward and hopefully towards circularity is to join our forces and do it together. Thank you so much, everybody. And having said that, I would like to invite Madame Laure Dutelier, the Director of the Governance and Sustainable Development Department from Asia Europe Foundation, to deliver closing remarks. Thank you so much, everybody. Dear Laure, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Gina. Thank you so much. So actually, it was very interesting discussions indeed, and I would like to thank all the speakers. And I would also like to thank all of you for the precious input you brought to the Asia Europe Environment Forum this year, 2022, and for the active participation. I'm very pleased that we could hold this conference virtually this year, but I do hope next year there will be a possibility to conduct it on site. I note with great satisfaction that we have welcomed more than 400 participants, registered participants from all of ASM countries. And this is an evidence, if it was needed, of the relevance of the chosen thematic for our Environment Forum annual conference, SMEs Going Circular, Decarbonisation of Food Supply Chains. So on behalf of the SF Executive Director, Ambassador Toru Morikawa, I would like to express my gratitude to our Environment Forum partners, the Government of Sweden and the Stockholm Environment Institute, the Hans Seidel Foundation, the SM SMEs Eco-Innovation Center, and the Institute for Global Environmental Strategies. For the past 19 years, these four partners have been successfully and continuously contributing to foster the Asia-Europe debate on sustainable development. So I would also like to extend my gratitude to Grow Asia, that has been supporting the implementation of this event. And this conference has brought together civil society, government representative, and business people, encouraging a multi-stakeholder dialogue on sustainable development with the specific focus on the agri-food sector and SMEs decarbonization, which is opening a 3-year cycle on this topic. Through the Environment Forum, SF is uniquely positioned to provide a collaborative platform that allows for the facilitated process of sharing knowledge and experiences, as well as discussing the challenges. During these last 2 days, we have covered a vast area under the umbrella of agri-food and sustainability. This will further on result in providing a comprehensive research on the topic of agri-food and SMEs in SM region. This research will be followed by 2 thematic policy briefs touching upon enabling conditions for SMEs decarbonization and innovation, leading the way for agriculture industry to clean supply chains. As SF, we will continue to work across SM region on the topics that contribute into the implementation of the 2030 agenda. And we will specifically focus on food sector, ensuring continued contribution to the international dialogue on economic, societal, and environmental dimension of sustainable development. We will also explore pathways towards a future that does promote approach that overshoots our planetary boundaries. Now it's the time to reflect and to take advantage of this momentum to address the approach we have to the practical implementation of the circular economy. On behalf of ASF Executive Director, Ambassador Morikawa, I do hope that the topics addressed during this conference allowed all of us to get an overview of potential approaches on how to close the loop and shift towards circularity. But at the same time, we hope having offered you a comprehensive, detailed perspective on some of the most relevant topics and challenges on sustainable consumption and production in the agri-food sector. Last but not least, I would like to thank my team and for its continuous efforts to organize this event. We are looking forward to welcome you at our future events, and we thank you for your attention.